Good morning, everyone. It's Black Friday in the United States, Canada, UK, Australia, pretty much everywhere around the world. Something that started, just about 10, 15 years ago. I don't remember the exact timing, but it was a US-only thing. And of course, we've felt it immediately in Canada because 80% of our population is within a 2-hour drive of the US. So there are a lot of great deals on it. And the purpose of this video is to talk a little bit about what's in our camera bag, but also which items are on sale, because we're seeing, I got to say, the best sales I've ever seen on cameras on one day. And it's not just now. It's we've seen it for the past week. So it's becoming less of a Black Friday deal. It's becoming more of, it was more of a Black Friday week. And at least what I'm seeing here in Canada, it's now basically you're seeing stuff go on sale at the beginning of the month. So some really good deals. Also, one thing you want to pay very careful attention to if you're purchasing today, check out with a local retailer. I know with B&H, I checked with them. I haven't heard back from Adorama, but a lot of them, what they're doing is they're extending the returns to January. B&H is doing it to the 31st. And if you buy something, let's say it's a battery grip or accessory or memory cards, cameras, whatever it is, they're actually going to say, look, you know what, if we drop the price, like the R6 Mark II, according to Canon rumors, is going to get a price drop in December. So if you buy it today, and it's currently, I believe, let's see, $600 off, if I remember correctly, something like that. Let's go ahead and take a look. R6 Mark II. So it's $500 off. I thought it was $600 off. I might be getting that confused with another camera. So it's $500 off. So if you buy it today at B&H, then what happens is if they drop the price, you reach out to them, proof of purchase, all that kind of jazz, and they'll refund you the difference. It's better than dealing with airlines. All they ever want to do is give you credits, right? So we're seeing a lot of stuff on sale today. And again, it's not just camera equipment, it's accessories, it's lenses, it's supporting equipment, like lighting, for example, like all the lights I have on me here today. It's microphones, it's tripods. Everything is on sale here. And thank you for tuning in to join with me. I do have some special guests showing up throughout the next couple of hours. I've tried to stagger them a little bit so that way we can sort of spend more one-on-one time with these guests to talk about some of the deals and what's in their camera bag. So let's start off with me. Actually, I want to bring something to your attention here. Vader66 just told us that you can get the R5 right now for $19.99. That's a refurb. Now, Vader, I'm assuming that's Canon USA that's got that. That would make sense, that it's Canon USA, $19.99. That was a long time ago. I'm thinking years. $19.99 for a camera that, in my view today, is still one of the best out there. I've got the R5 Mark II here, and I'm using it almost every day. I think it's a terrific camera. I really do like it. You know, when it comes to dynamic range, that's the big talk. It's not so much that the dynamic range has increased. I'm talking video, by the way. It's not that it's increased that much over the Mark I, but you get that new log curve. And, you know, whether you're buying the R5, Mark II, Mark I, Nikon Z8, the Z6 Mark III, a Panasonic, pretty much all of them, whether they're talking about 8 or 16-bit or 12-bit or 14-bit, the DAC, the digital analog converter, is 12 bits. So you've got 12 stops of exposure there. So really where you're getting that improvement, that the effect of 13 plus 5 stops of dynamic range is in that log curve, because what it's doing, it's bringing up those shadows, and that's the power. And of course you've got, well, we don't have, and I'm not a big fan of false colors, and I'll explain to you why in a little bit. What I find is a really good combo is setting the zebras, one of the zebras, to 35%. That helps me get the exposure correct on my talent, and then using waveforms to see the overall exposure of everything in the field. So I kind of told you a little bit about what's in my bag already. Let's take a look at a few deals, because some of these are shocking. Now, Vader did say that the R5 is at Canon USA, and it's on the refurb section. And as far as Canon goes today, there are some really good deals. Nothing that's so striking from what we saw earlier in the week. You can see that the R5 is, if you want to get it new and not refurbished new, then it's $27.99. Now, my thoughts on refurbished are pretty simple. you're getting the manufacturer's warranty. Now, I did buy a refurb once where it was kind of acting weird and they couldn't find it, so I just returned it and there was no problem with that. So I think in most cases with a refurb, it might be something that they use as a demo, might have been something that was returned by a customer. If there's any issues, they have to replace the parts that were problematic before they can put it out as refurb. So technically it's like a demo car. It's been used to some degree. We don't know how much, but you get the full manufacturer's warranty. So if you're willing to take that slight extra risk, I mean, you're saving yourself, what, $800? That's kind of a big deal. I'm going to get to Nikon in a minute too, because Nikon has some incredible sales. And look, if you pair it with the 24-105 f4, which is what I currently have it paired with here, then you're going to save a significant amount of money. It's just incredible. It reminds me of when I bought the R5 Mark I, which is what I'm shooting with right now. The 24-105 was the first lens that I got. It showed up before the camera, and I think it was around $1,250, and that's Canadian, and that's after tax. Today, let's see how much that lens costs. US RF 24-105. Let's see what we got here. So look at that. US now, you're looking at $1,299. So it's definitely, prices have gone up on some things, but the good thing when it comes to camera gear is we're also seeing a lot of sales. So let's take a look at some of the lenses here. Let's do, this is the way to do it. Just type in Canon and then say mirrorless. And then we pick the lenses. And this will give us a good idea of what's on sale. I have an idea already because I already took a look throughout the week. No sales there. So the 24-70 is $300 off. The 16 millimeter, $50 off. And this is one of the best days to get gear. Now, one thing to keep in mind too when you're shopping for stuff, if it's televisions, we got some monitors on sale as well. What retailers quite often do is to get you in the door is they're basically taking the old stuff. They're trying to clear out inventory. So they throw out these huge deals on old stuff that's taking up space that they got to get out the door. So whenever you're buying gear such as televisions, monitors, and that sort of stuff, just, are you getting something new? Are you getting something that's a year or two old? Keep that in mind. But you're also getting a lot of stuff that is, how should we say, priced quite well. So I'm just bringing my first guest in here, guys. Probably recognize this gentleman. He is the owner, operator, founder of Sony Alpha Rumors and a whole bunch of other sites. Isn't that right, Andrea?
Yeah, many websites. Because I'm restless, so I have to have many things to do.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to add your name to this thing. No, that's not it. Oh, here we go. I'm wearing glasses, but I still have problems. So, Andre, you were supposed to go on a ski trip today. What happened?
Yeah, it was supposed. So we have little snow in the southern part of the Alps. Yesterday, it should have snowed. There should have been some snow, but nothing came. So it's not really nice to go skiing when everything around you is brown and So we said we're going to skip this. We are doing it next week. If there's some snow coming later, then
I live in an area where it's pretty far south, so I think there's a little dusting of snow outside. But last year we didn't have any meaningful snow. It was just brown, gray, and dark all year long.
Oh shit! I love really. I love it. I do a lot of ski touring and skiing, and so it happens every couple of years. You have a year where the snow is not coming really in time, and that's it. That's the year.
So, have you bought anything yet today?
No. No. I'm very boring when it comes to shopping because I only buy rarely stuff and only after I'm sure that I really need it. So actually, for example, I own only one digital camera and I own, I think, 5 film cameras, analog cameras, because I still use them. Comes to lenses, I do have 3 or 4 E-mount lenses, and that's it. So I rarely buy stuff unless I really need it. I know there are now many great deals. I have now friends, for example, that want to buy some cameras and they can enjoy those deals. They basically the Europe. I live in Europe. The European deals are about the same as the US deals. So, for example, the Sony A7 IV has a great pricing,
Yeah.
uh, and I mean it's now in Europe €1,900. It's a great full frame camera. Even if I know there's a Sony A7 V coming for sure, I'm 100% certain it's coming early next year. Still, the Sony A7 IV is great.
Yeah, well, what we're seeing is a lot of excitement in that space. So we got the A7 IV, which is $415 off, and Adorama B&H over here in the United States have it with a memory card, camera bag, and all that. We got the Canon EOS R6 Mark II. That's down to $1999, and we have the Nikon Z6 Mark III. And this. I was shocked by this. I want to see if it's happening again right now. Z6 III. I believe it's $300 off. Look at this. This
Already.
just came out.
Yeah. That's a classic Panasonic move. They announce camera, and after 2 months, they discount them heavily. Like the Lumix S9,
Yeah.
which is now 3-4 months old. It's now $500 less than the original pricing. So that's also another great camera. But I saw the Lumix S9 body for $1,290, and I mean it's a very pocketable, small, full frame camera for $1,300. That's great.
Well, here's something interesting. You said Panasonic. So I wanted to find it. It's the S5 IIX. Now it's $1997, $200 off. But they've thrown in like a lens, and basically for $21.97 you get a whole kit for around $2,000. It's but and this is kind of topical too, because somebody just asked me when we think we're going to see Panasonic release something, and I think what's holding Panasonic back. Now we saw this year, Andrea, we saw Sony, Canon, Nikon, and Panasonic all change the dates, and it all looked like none of us knew what we were talking about. But it wasn't. Is the dates just kept changing on things, and eventually, like with Sony, we got stuff pushed into Q1. But I think what's happening at Panasonic is they've stated that they're in a bit of a crisis, and this is from Bloomberg. This is coming from their CEO themselves. So it sounds like they might be doing some restructuring. And I think what's holding up Panasonic Lumix's division is just the availability of funds. I think there's something going on internally, folks, and I think that's what's delaying things.
Yeah, all I know for sure from direct info from stores, from major stores, is that Panasonic is not selling as expected. That's why we also those price cuts that are pretty dramatic in some cases. So really, when it comes to Panasonic cameras and lenses, they're really great for a very low price. But still, they don't manage to sell enough of those cameras and lenses, according to those major store owners I own. So I think I don't know what's going on at Panasonic, what's going on, what their plan is.
Yeah.
But I'm also a bit afraid. I don't think they will drop out of the camera business. I think they will just slow down everything. They're still doing money with cameras because they make the Leica cameras mostly, or like the SL3 and other cameras from Leica. They are basically Panasonic cameras with the Leica software and Leica housing, and they're making money with that.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is for months now, the S1 series, S1, S1R, S1H, have been alternating between special order and temporarily out of stock. You expect that if you're doing a refresh next week, not month after month. What do you think's going on there?
I heard from one source that actually, for example, the S1R2 should have been already here, should have been announced half of 2024, and they delayed it. So, for example, if you check for some time on the S1R, you saw will be in stock in 6 or 8 months. You saw that message on BH Photo. And I think what they meant is that the S1R2 is coming, and then you will get the S1R2. But no, I think they slowed down the roadmap. Something Sony also did, and Sony made it official actually in the last financial report. They wrote that they're slowing down the release cycle because of the stagnation on the Chinese market. That's what they said. So I don't know. I don't know. I really have to ask sources again what's going on with Panasonic, but I'm also a bit worried.
Yeah, me too. I mean, 6 years is too long for a refresh.
Yeah.
You know, for a company that led with things such as false colors, waveforms, vector scopes, and a lot of other things, now we're starting to see Sony, Canon, and Nikon start to put these in their cameras. And you know, I was so excited when the S5 2X and 2 came out because I thought, wow, the autofocus system, you started to see the cameras differently. And I thought, okay, so 6 months we'll have an S1, and you know, a year and a half later, and so in 2 years it's not here. So anyhow, we'll move off of the sad stuff. I just want you, for those of you who aren't aware, Andrea Pizzini also has a YouTube channel, and he's doing very well. Let's see if we can get him up to 24,000 subscribers. I personally alternate between going to the written word and to the website, because I love to hear what people have to say, because they always say more, Andrea. But when I'm composing my videos and citing you, I like to copy the text of the specs and then, you know, add my own commentary behind it. But when it comes to anything Sony, Andrea he's usually the source. And when I come out with stories, I'm basing it off of what he's saying. So not only that, he's also come out with information about Canon lenses, the 200 to 800. You led that. You've also led stuff on Nikon, the ZF. You are accurate there. So you know, what I try to tell people on my channel is if it says trusted sources, you can take that to the bank. If it says wild rumors, consider it wild rumors. Is that correct? That's how we read your information?
Yeah. I post sometimes wild rumors because sometimes they can be right. They're also funny to discuss. And it also helps me to trigger the trusted sources to give me some feedback. So, but still, sometimes people struggle to understand the difference between wild and trusted rumors. They mix, probably because there's a lot of emotional attachment. They
Yes.
hope that things become true, and then they're disappointed if they don't become true. Today I posted this I will post this video about the Fuji medium format camera that is coming in March. That's 100% confirmed. So I will shut down the YouTube channel if this is not going to happen. So that's how sure I am, because I also work with the Fuji rumor guy. So we are very close and we work together. And Fujifilm will again have a very cool year in 2025. So Fujifilm is doing fine. We can't be worried about Panasonic and others, but Fujifilm is really doing fine. And yeah, it's exciting.
Well, they're growing in market share.
Yeah, they are growing. They're really doing a ton of money with Instax.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I don't know. Everybody, like I see on the street, the young people, they have an Instax, the families. So that's the only camera that still sells a lot among the general public.
You know, it's interesting.
Yeah.
When I walk around Toronto, I'm always, whenever I see somebody with a real camera, I always pay attention to what it is. And I'd say 50% of the time I'm seeing Sony, not Canon, which Canon is the market share leader, but I'm seeing more Sony cameras. Not seeing any Nikon, not seeing any Panasonic. I see some Canon. I've seen some Fuji. But yeah, I seem to be seeing Sony everywhere.
Mm-hmm. True. Yesterday, a friend of a friend, so not one that I really know a lot about, he's just a nurse. And he asked me, what camera should I buy? And I just told him some kind of cheap camera brand. And he said, no, I would like to have a Sony. Why?
Why
Yeah,
Sony?
because Sony makes the best cameras. So and he was a nurse. So uh, there is some kind of narrative going around that Sony makes the best cameras when it comes to mirrorless. I don't think that's the case. I think every brand has really true great cameras. Nikon with the Z8, Canon with the R5 II. So I'm not a cult thinking pro
Yeah.
Sony guy. Absolutely no.
No, I'm
What's
the same way. Look, when it comes to, I always have to remind myself whether it's Canon, Panasonic, Sony, Apple, Ford, these are corporations, and their primary purpose, to remind everyone, is to be in business, to make money for the shareholders. It's not for us, it's not for you. So always keep that in mind. When it comes to cameras, I honestly think, I could, if somebody came in here on the 25th, stole all my Canon gear and replaced it with Sony, I could keep going as though nothing happened. Sure, I've come accustomed to Canon and I appreciate certain things, but you know what? Give me Sony for a year or two and I'll say the same thing about Sony or about Nikon. Whenever somebody says it's the best, I always go, uh-oh, because it's a generalization. Well, what do you mean? What is it you're looking for? First of all, do you have any Sony gear or Canon or Nikon gear? Because it's usually if you have Canon or Sony or Nikon gear, it's probably best to stay within the ecosystem because it's very expensive to switch gear.
hmm yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your photography because I know you've actually helped build some cameras. What's in your camera bag? What kind of gear do you use?
So I have three kind of cameras. So one is the digital cameras, one is the analog cameras, and one is the camera I built for myself. So when it comes to digital cameras, I have the Sony A7R5, and I'm super happy with it. It's basically the best boring camera you can buy because it's unspectacular to watch from a design point of view. It's not like a Leica or a Fuji, but it's for me the best camera you can buy because you can do everything with it. I need high resolution sensor not because I do high resolution printing or because I think 60 megapixels is better than 20. It's because I do hike a lot and I do crop a lot. So I don't have to carry a big tele zoom lens when I'm up at 3,000 meter on ski tour. I can just take a small lens, take the picture, and then I can crop in 100% without any issue. And that for me is the value of the Sony A7R5. Having that resolution really matters to me. It has a superb EVF. You can do the vlogging. I do the videos with the Sony A7R5 because it has a fully articulating screen. The autofocus is great. So it's a great camera. If I wouldn't need a resolution, I would go for the Sony A7 IV, but the A7R5 does it for me. As a zoom lens, I have the 28-200 Tamron, which is light and great for my landscape shooting. I don't rarely do wide angles, so for me it's fine having 28. I do have the Voigtlander 40mm 1.2, which is the best lens I own, but it has to do with the aesthetics of the image. It's a very cinematographic way of shooting, and it's a manual focusing lens, but I mostly shoot manual focus because I want to choose, because I think more creatively, and I want to focus in a creative way. So Sony, if I have an autofocus lens, it would put me the focus, of course, in the eye, for example, of a person, but I look at different details and then I use the manual focus. So that's then I have the only new lens I bought this year is the 50mm 1.2 from Voigtlander, again a manual focus lens. And that's about it, what I use when it comes to digital stuff.
You know, what you just said really rings with me. And we keep talking about the latest cameras and whether it's Sony or Nikon, whoever's going to come out with a camera next year. Like the Z9, was it not? Yeah, the Z9 II. I believe that's coming next year. And I think it's going to do exactly what Sony and Canon did with the Digic Accelerator, the AI processing unit, and provide a better autofocus system that thinks more like us. But if you ever shoot manual, it completely changes your camera and your experience. It's so much more creative. It's so much more exciting. And yes, you can take your, your modern lenses and you can go ahead and flip the autofocus off, but you always end up putting it back on. And when you're going out there with a manual lens, if you haven't tried it in a long time or haven't tried it at all, do it. It's a ton of fun. It really is. I love reviewing manual focus lenses, but for a lot of times, because I have two jobs, Andrea, I just don't. I can't. I am so high strung with trying to get things done one shot the first time that unless I'm doing a review, I don't have time for manual focus. I can't wait till I can retire so I can do the things I want to do more than the things I have to do.
Yeah, I understand you perfectly. Yeah. I'm actually on my way back to a photography that is more slow, unique, has more mistakes, of course. But
You are the camera.
that's, yeah, but I'm really done with the kind of easy photography we see now, which is very good. I mean, it's perfect to have a perfectly working autofocus when you shoot something like a birthday party, then you don't want to be the creative guy. You just want that your kid or the kid from your best friend is in focus, and that's it. So I'm super happy that all the technology exists, but me, as a person, I'm a creative person. I want to go my own way, and then I need to have manual control. That's for me very important.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. I want. Well, I have another guest who's going to be coming up shortly, so I want to quickly get this in because I know the people who are tuning in to find out a bit more about Sony. So the Sony A7 IV, that's something I'm paying very close attention to in the A7S III, FX3, because we are getting ready for a refresh. You've been talking about Q1. Anything else you can tell us about, or just summarize those two cameras for us?
No, so for sure the Sony A7 V is coming. That's confirmed via trusted sources, so this is not a wild rumor. And one of the trusted sources even gave me a sort of time frame, exact month when it would be announced. But I'm awaiting final confirmation because we had so many delays this year. I just want to wait before I tell you it's coming on that month. But if it's confirmed, then it's coming really soon. So you will not have to wait a long time. Soon, a couple of months. So that's what I mean. I'm also very excited about the new possibly FX32 slash A7S4 if it's coming. Because I think the Sony A9 III with the global shutter is actually, that sensor is actually perfect for filmmakers. And I hope this sensor will find its way in the FX3 too. That's my hope.
Yeah, I really love what Red's done there. I think a global shutter works too, having a good log profile. Because one thing I realize, see, you're ignorant until you're not. Shooting with the R5 for so many years, I finally got to the point where I understood how to work with log. And it had the Canon Log 3 profile. But I always found that I had to struggle sometimes with colors, especially if it was in low light. Because if you think of the 12 stops you usually get from a DAC, most of what we're seeing is, in the midtones. That's where we see things. And we're not looking in the highlights a lot of times. We're not staring up at the sky. We're looking down. And being able to lift up the shadows is great, but a lot of times when we lift up the shadows, we don't have enough color information. Whenever I see TV shows, I'm always seeing the type of camera they use. I'm always seeing the color and how in low light the colors look amazing regardless of the candle temperature or the color temperature. Just really, really amazing. And as they come up with new cameras, as they increase the dynamic range, as they increase the colors, as they provide us tools such as waveforms, vector scopes, false colors, and I think false colors, I don't care for false colors, and the reason being is most cameras don't have it, and most of the gear you attach that have, there's no standard behind it. But if you're looking at the EL scale, I think it solves that problem, but it's not widespread yet. But I think EL, I forgot what it's EL something, but that is the best form of false colors because your middle gray is actually gray. And when you're hitting your saturation point, it's white. And when you're hitting your noise floor, it's black. And then it's dithers between those points. And it's just really incredible scale. So excited.
I mean, I studied cinema many years ago, 20 years ago. So I have a degree at the film school. And I remember 20 years ago doing movies or documentaries with the big cameras. And now you can just have a small FX3, maybe soon even with global shutter, that really the image quality is stunning compared to we're used to use for professional production. I made some documentaries for the German television, for the Italian television, so national television. FX says there is no more a problem with image quality when it comes to cameras. So I'm amazed. So I think there's no limitation with you can do everything with the FX3 now. So I'm amazed by this advancement, and maybe we have now hit some sort of point where it's hard to bring innovation. So that's also something companies are now struggling because you have enough megapixel, enough video quality, enough of everything. It's hard to really bring people to spend others $5,000-$6,000 on a new camera that has only small improvements.
Well, thank you, Andrea. I want to introduce our next guest. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, this is Chris, and please let me know if I spelt your name correctly down below. It's Ogonek, correct?
Correct.
Chris Ogonek is from Nikon Canada, and he's going to tell us some crazy deals that are going on right now. Chris, you guys really surprised me the other day when I saw the price of what I felt the release price was already a discounted price over the competition. I want to start off with this camera here. The Nikon Z9 is $49.96 US.
Correct. Yeah, US dollars, it totally is.
I'm speechless.
It's one of those things where the camera's been out a couple years now, and obviously with the increased competition that we're seeing from the other competitors, we felt that it was time. This is the first time that it's been on a true rebate where you get instant savings off of it. So yeah, we're really excited that so many of our products are being seen as really good deals, but specifically with the Z9, how impressive the pricing is.
Well, and it's not just the Z9. So I don't want to I'd like to give you the floor because people hear me talk all the time, but why don't you tell us about some of the deals that are going on, things you want to draw attention to? Because I know some of your really high-end glass is also on sale. So tell us a little bit about what's going on there.
Yeah, we've got more on sale than not on sale. We've only got a couple of our models, whether it's bodies or lenses, that are not on sale. So basically, if you're looking for a deal, there's one out there. The couple ones that stand out to me. Now, I'll be talking in Canadian dollars just because that's what's in my brain, and I don't want to be doing the conversion on the fly for you. But the Z8 is now $800 off, so Canadian $800 off, which is absolutely crazy. It gets it down to $45.99. So that in itself is a ridiculous deal.
Well, I want to interrupt. Because at Downtown Camera, I'm seeing one for $41.47 open box.
So yeah, so that might be like a refurbished.
Yep. But
yeah.
Still,
so we're talking $45.99 new. And you can go and find them cheaper from, let's say, Downtown or other resellers that have open box items.
Yeah, no, I'm seeing it. So $45.99 Canadian for the Z8, which is one of my favorite cameras. If I migrated to Nikon, it would be the Z8 for sure.
Yeah, it's my go-to camera for nearly everything I do. If I just have to kind of close my eyes and pick, it's going to be the Z8.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have those dual CF Express type B cards, but Yeah, no, the Z8 I think would be. I mean, I keep staring at that 4147 open box, even if it's a refurb, because you still get the same manufacturer's warranty. It's like I'm almost tempted to give Patrick a call and say, Patrick, geez, that's okay. Sorry, I'm drooling. What else is going on, Chris?
Well, surprisingly, even though it just came out in May, was the Z6 III. So that's actually on sale, $400 off, getting it down to just 3,000 Canadian dollars.
Yeah, me and Andrea were talking about that one recently. I was surprised because first of all, it went on sale for $200 off US, then $300, which is the equivalent Canadian is $400 off. Yeah, that is a very competitive space. This is not 2022 anymore. I'm shocked by some of the deals that we're seeing.
Yeah, so the Z6 III is kind of that, like I said, really, really popular price point where right around that $3,000, and there's a lot of competition there, obviously, but having the Z6 III just come out, have it be really, really powerful in terms of what it can do, not only in stills, but specifically on the video side, 3,000 Canadian dollars is just out of this world.
Yeah, you know, when I was looking at buying a camera back in 2019, I was disillusioned with Canon, and I looked at everything. But everybody was getting ready for a refresh, and it was much tougher. Whereas today, you know, I could look at any brand and go like, oh yeah, give me the Z8, or you know what, the Z6 Mark III looks good, or Sony. It's like, well, no, if it was Sony, I'd still say no. I want to wait for the A7 V because we know that's going to be refreshed. We know the Canon R6 is going to be refreshed again. It's a very, very competitive space. Okay, so now the Z7 II is on sale as well, correct?
Correct, I believe, and I don't have all the pricing in my brain. I believe that one's $1,000 off, getting it down to the same 3,000 as the Z6 III. So if you are looking for a higher resolution camera, if you don't need the autofocus capabilities that a Z8 provides, if you're doing more landscape work, you want the highest dynamic range in our lineup, the Z7 II is a killer deal.
Yeah, that is. And in the U.S. it's $1,000 off as well. I don't know what's going on there. So now I know to be fair to people around the world who are tuning in, going like, well, how come it's only $1,000 off Canadian? Well, sadly, I don't know if this won't show up on the screen here, but if I take a look, the Canadian dollar is now down to 71.3 to the US dollar. And a year ago, we were around 75. A year before that, it was 80. So our currency is, well, devaluing. It's not crashing, but it's going down at a steady rate, and we don't see that stopping until around 62 cents. So when we see these deals, if you're interested in getting it in Canada, get it now because, in a year from now, it might go down on sale again, but you might be paying a slightly higher price with currency conversion, which is something we all have to deal with. And if you're not in the United States, it's something we all deal with, right? So that's one of the reasons I talk in US dollars, because we all understand it. Now, tell us a little bit about some other deals or lenses, but we also want to understand a little bit about what's in your camera bag and what you shoot with, Chris.
Well, I'll quickly talk about the lenses. Just say that we have a number of our native Z lenses on sale. I think they're up to 800 US Canadian dollars off. So really, really good savings. Kind of runs the gamut from if you're looking for the new 135 Plena. That's one of my favorite portrait lenses. That's on sale. If you're looking for the 70 to 200, the 24 to 70, they're all on sale basically. With I think the exception of like the 180 to 600. That's one of the more popular ones that unfortunately stock-wise, we just don't have a lot of it, so it doesn't make sense to go and put it on sale. But nearly everything else is on sale. So I won't bore everybody with that. But let me think about my camera gear. I think it depends on what I'm doing. If it's something more professional, if I'm needing to really kind of push the boundaries of what the camera is going to be required to do, probably I'll grab the Z8. I think that's my kind of go-to, just because it can do literally anything and everything. But if I'm doing, let's say, more of a travel type of scenario where I'm going to be going out and I'm not going to need to push the camera's boundaries quite as much, I've actually been grabbing the ZF recently.
Really?
That's been, yeah. I'm not that kind of, I don't need the retro. I don't have, like, the camera appeals to me for other reasons, but the look of it is kind of almost secondary. So I really go for it because it's smaller size, and the autofocus still is a huge improvement over kind of older generations of cameras. So it's
Yeah.
a smaller weight, smaller size. I can easily throw it into a small camera bag. It's really, really easy to take.
You know, sorry, I'm losing my throat here. I said really, 'cause one thing I was surprised, because, you know, if you've got the Z8, see, I'm kind of one of those, if you've got something really good, you take it with you everywhere. And if I've got the Z8, you know, as good as the ZF or the Z6 are, and I know they're lighter and smaller, I'd be tempted to take that Z8 with me everywhere, because if I got someplace and realized I wish I had this, you know, that would frustrate me.
I agree, and I kind of forced myself. So the first time I took the ZF on a family trip,
Yeah.
I knew that there wasn't going to be a major, huge pushing of the camera's boundary. So I was like, you know, I'm comfortable with this. Let's try it out. I want to see how far I can push it. And I ended up finding some birds in flight while I was there. So I was like, you know what? The ZF is not designed for that. We don't market it towards it, but I want to see what it can do. And let me tell you, I spent the morning and I was blown away at how good it was with birds in flight. So after I saw that, I kind of went, oh, like, okay, I can basically take this camera for nearly everything. Obviously, it doesn't have the resolution. It doesn't have the pure autofocus power that the Z8 and Z9 have, but I found it was able to do most of what I would say most users would require of it. And it's smaller and lighter. So I have a 5-year-old. So when we go traveling, my camera bag is now being taken up more by his snacks, by his, he has a little camera as well. He's got a little waterproof one. So his stuff is encroaching on my camera bag. So I have to kind of try and find out as small as a footprint as I can for my camera gear. So I'll usually bring, now, let's say if I'm doing a family trip, it'll be the ZF.
Yeah.
I'll probably bring some kind of walk around lens, probably like a 24 to 120. And then I'll usually bring some sort of prime lens with me so I can get some kind of environmental portraits, usually a 35. It was the 1.8, but now I've fallen in love with the new 35 1.4. So that's kind of found its way into my bag as well. And then those are kind of the two lenses I'll pretty much always bring, the 24 to 120, a 35 mil. And then if I have a need for something longer, it'll kind of depend. I try not to bring the 180 to 600 just because it is a little bit larger. That's kind of more of a dedicated photo purpose lens.
Yeah.
If I need something smaller, it'll be the 100 to 400. Or if I know I'm always going to be shooting kind of at distance, the 400 4.5 is definitely my go-to, because it's basically a 70 to 200 size and weight, but you're getting a 400 mil lens. It's incredible.
Your kit sounds very similar to mine. I go to Vancouver every year, and I hate traveling with this kit, but when I get there, I'm so much happier. And I can do it. It's just what terrifies me is what the airlines are going to do, right? So do they all of a sudden... So what I usually do is I get a Tim Hortons $20 gift card. I give it to the desk and I say, look, you know, I'm traveling in economy or premium economy. Do you mind if I board with class 2 or whatever it is, because I've got X number of dollars of camera gear? And they usually like, yeah, no problem. But, you know, I like to travel with the 24 to 105, so right with your 24 to 120. Instead of a 35, I go with a 50. And I try to travel with a 100 to 500, because if you're out in Vancouver and you don't have the 100 to 500, the first time I went without it, I kicked myself. I almost bought another one. It's, you know, we both live in the GTA, but Vancouver offers so much. If I have to do a live stream or if it's dark, the 50 works because you can open it up. 24 to 105 is a great general purpose lens. 24 to 120, and a telephoto helps you if you see a bear or something, because bears are brown or black or white. You don't want to get too close to them. At least I
definitely not.
So what else is in your camera bag?
Yeah. Well, after that, it kind of becomes more specialized. If I'm going somewhere where I know I'm going to be shooting dedicated landscapes, maybe the 14 to 30. The 14 to 30 f4 is kind of my go-to, just because it is so small and lightweight. And I don't do a ton of dedicated landscape shoots. So it's more of a, I don't know if I'll need this. And the 14 to 24, as amazing as it is, I'd bring that if I was doing astro work. Yeah. But I don't need f2.8 all the time. So having that super, super small 14 to 30 is just fits in the bottom of my bag, and I don't even notice it unless I need it. And then after that, it really comes down to if I'm doing something more specialized like portraiture. If I'm doing portraits, then I have a big choice whether I'm in a studio and I'll grab something more like a 50 or an 85, or if I'm outside shooting portraits, then it's a no-brainer for me. It's the 135 Plena. That Plena has just spoiled me so much in terms of the look and feel of a portrait lens that I never want to not shoot with it. The only reason I won't is if I don't have the space for 135.
Yeah, I keep talking about the 135. I don't do portraits much at all. I'm mostly a video shooter. I want the 135, but it's kind of like I want a Ferrari, you know? I want one, but you and I both know, and Andrea knows, I'm not going to be getting one. My back won't let me get it.
No, if you really want a Ferrari, you buy the Noctilux 58 millimeter 0.95. That's the one lens you
Yes.
should.
Very good. And Andrea, do you have any questions for Chris too? I don't want to monopolize the floor. And by the way, before I let you answer that, the 14 to 30 Chris is on sale in Canada at $1,400 or $1,399, and on sale in the United States as well at $1,046. But yeah, Andrea.
I don't have really any question. The only reason for me to switch from Sony to Nikon would actually be the ZF. So this is a camera I really like because it's compact, like you said. You can always carry it with you. It has a nice pancake prime lens. So this one is really great. And if Sony doesn't wake up and make something, okay, there's the A7C lineup supposed to be the classic camera lineup. I don't really agree. I hope they will make something similar, because otherwise I really will end up buying the ZF or probably ZF2 once it's released in 1-2 years from now.
I will tell you, the ZF, it's really kind of a gateway drug into the Nikon world. The number of users that I talked to who own that camera, who it was not like Nikon was not their primary system. They were Fuji users who wanted full frame. It was Sony users or Canon users who wanted that look and feel, while a lot of the benefits of what the specs of the camera held. We went to, Nikon, we're at a wedding convention in the spring of last year, and the number of ZFs was out of this world. I have never seen that many. I wanted to get a whole group photo of just the ZF users because it was unbelievable. And I would say 50% of them were dedicated Nikon shooters. The other 50% were non-Nikon shooters. And it's kind of started off as I'll get it as my backup camera. This is going to be kind of my fun piece that I kind of use. And almost every single one of them, because I really, once I saw it a few times, I really kind of wanted to talk to every single one. Almost all of them were saying it started off as a backup piece, but it really impressed them. Kind of like what I was saying with the birds in flight earlier, with it's not just that like, ooh, cool, look, it looks amazing type of camera. It has a lot of horsepower behind it too on the video and still side. So they just kind of used it more and more and more and more until they realized, I think I'm a Nikon shooter now.
I know, Andre, every time I see these sales, it's like, okay, I'm ready to...
Look at the ZF 1800.
I know.
That's really affordable. I mean, like you said, like Chris said, imagine all those frustrated Fuji guys. They love their APS-C camera, but they would love to have a larger sensor that is not the GFX, that really is too bulky, too big, too expensive. You have a ZF for 1800. So... And I'm still amazed. I'm in this business now since 2008, the rumor business. I'm still amazed that I don't see more of those kind of cameras like the Nikon ZF.
Yeah.
No Canon lens is rumored to make one in 2025, whatever. We don't know if it's true. But Sony is still not there. I'm amazed at how companies are having like a blind spot on this, except of Nikon.
Yeah. No, it's... I keep sitting here, I keep thinking, I should buy this, I should buy the Z8, and then I just remind myself, no, I got to buy the lens, and before I know... That's the tough thing of owning multiple systems. I will get there, but it's... Yeah. This is one thing about those days,
Well,
Chris.
I know it's really tricky, but I will say, as much as obviously we want people to shoot with Nikon glass with their Nikon bodies, one of the nice things is we have the widest mount on the market. We have the thinnest flange distance on the market. So there are adapters, regardless of whether you're a Sony shooter, whether you're anybody, you can basically fit any lens onto a Nikon body. And with the level of the third-party adapters nowadays, you're getting great autofocus capability as well. So you aren't limited to just the one or two lenses you get for the Nikon. You are able to use much wider length or wider breadth if you do have those other third-party lenses in your bag.
That's good to know. What I want to do though is when I do make the jump, I want to go native, because then I can talk to people and say, this is what it's like to shoot. If I have any issues, I can't blame it on the camera. I can't blame it on the lens because it's being adapted, and I want to jump in with both feet. One of these years, Chris, you're going to hear I'm doing this because, for me, especially when I go back to my youth, it was Nikon and Canon. And who was the best? Well, it was usually whoever released the newest camera, but, especially back then, because Nikon was, people forget, Nikon was the king of the world when it came to film cameras. It wasn't Canon. Nikon had
for a while, yeah. Well, once autofocus came in, Canon kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but yeah, we were back and forth for many years, and I think once we kind of came out with the Z9, people realized, oh no, like back in with mirrorless, this is kind of Nikon is back here, and we went from the Z9 to the Z8 to the ZF, and it just kind of been hit after hit after hit. So I think I'm biased, but I'm very happy with our lineup is right now.
No, I agree. I do want to ask you one question though, because I've noticed this in not just with Nikon but Canon in some of the latest stacked sensors. Now, my understanding that Z6 Mark III, it's a stacked sensor, but it's also backside illuminated, correct?
So all stacked sensors are backside illuminated.
That's what I thought. So theoretically, my understanding is that with backside illuminated sensors, you should have less noise, not more. And what we're seeing with like the R5 Mark II, with the Z6 Mark II, we're seeing a little bit more noise. Hazard a guess as to why that is? Because is it one of those things where when you go to this technology, you're going to get these benefits, but you're going to get these cons? Or because maybe I'm running up against the theory and I'm trying to understand that quandary.
This is something that kind of I would usually defer more to one of our technical people in Japan, because they really know the nuts and bolts of it. I will give a very generalized answer of it. It's not always the case of just it being a stacked sensor or a non-stacked sensor. It usually, when people are doing these tests, it's actually usually the electronic shutter versus mechanical shutter. So if you go and use a Z8, well, sorry, let's say if you had a Z8 with a mechanical shutter, you generally would find that you could get a slightly different result using the mechanical versus the electronic. Obviously, with the Z8 and Z9, they have electronic only, so you don't have that. But with other manufacturers, when they do have a mechanical and electronic, you actually do see a difference in that regard. So it's not usually the fact that it's a stacked sensor versus non. It's usually how the sensor is processing that individual photo, whether they're doing it with a mechanical shutter or the electronic shutter.
Yeah, fair enough. You have to forgive me too, because we cover news and rumors. I find the best way to get information is actually not from rumor sites, and Andrea can comment on this too. It's delving through all the patent applications that you, Canon, and others file, where people say, "Oh, who knows?" Well, no, it's their own words, written by engineers, approved by lawyers, and published. And you guys have released some interesting patents lately. When it comes to the Z9, your flagship, how many years is it that you refresh it? Is it every 4 years, every 5 years? What's the normal range for refresh of the flagship?
To be honest, it's constantly changing, and even within the lifespan of the camera, it's changing. So in the past, when we were looking at like the D series, so a D4 to a D4S to a D5 to a D6, it was probably about 2.5-ish years from, let's say, a D4 to a D4S. So from a D4 to a D5, like the full switch, was probably about 4 to 5 years, depending on the specific model you looked at. Now, we don't know when the Z9 II will come out. It could come out tomorrow. It could come out in 2 years. It could come out in 3 or 4 years. So in terms of when the next model will come out, it's still kind of unknown. But what I will say is, at least from the way we're doing things in terms of our firmware updates, we're instead of going and coming out with a D4 and a D4S, it seems as if we're introducing a lot of higher end features that would come in at the D4S level
Yeah.
into the Z9 as it is. So we're kind of almost lengthening the product's lifespan of the actual camera itself by introducing really important firmware updates that are going and doing things like automatic shooting. So when the camera notices, when you've set it up and you've told it, I only want you to shoot when a animal walks from the right to the left and at this distance, then the camera will fire. Well, that's a feature we introduced into the Z9
Was that
as a
2.0?
firmware update.
Firmware 2.0 was that?
Oh goodness, I believe that might have been 3.0, but they all blend together in my brain. But yeah, so we're trying to lengthen the span of the camera to not have people constantly buying new cameras, spending their very hard-earned money. So we're trying to kind of lengthen that by going and introducing very not just small little updates, but substantial firmware updates.
Yeah, and I want to say a personal thank you for doing that as well, because what it not only does is it creates more loyalty to the brand. That, you know, while we understand that Nikon's there to make money for its shareholders, you're also improving the customer experience. And what eventually happens is we're more likely to buy the next update because we know that we're going to get that support. We're going to, it's when you get a firmware update with new features, it's like you just got a new camera, and that's powerful. But I want to let you might not know this. You guys filed a patent back in, or Japan did back in July, was published about 3 months later. This is why I'm on a heightened sense of listening for anything regarding any Z9 or Z8. I think the Z9 II would come out next because it was 2021 October when it came out. But the patent application talks about a sensor that can act as both a global shutter and a rolling shutter in the same frame. And I saw that and went, that's interesting. It's definitely a high-end capability. So I look for it. I look at these cameras that we have, and I look at the Z8, I look at the Z9, I look at the A7R5, the A1 II, and a lot of people ask me the same question. You know, what could they possibly do in the next one to make it better? And I always think if they can make it more like us, the way we think in terms of focus. Like, our eyes are incredible. I look around the room, the way it immediately senses the different lighting conditions, focuses and all that stuff. If the autofocus system can think more like us, if anything it can do to workflow to increase the hit rate, I think is important. And I think that's what I'm seeing happening in these new cameras that are coming out. That's why I don't like to cover specs, because if you look at the specs, there's very little different between some of these cameras. But when you look at it,
Totally true. Yeah. Yeah, I think autofocus capability is going to continue to get better and better, not only because of the processor, the deep learning algorithms that we're building into it, but as you said, also the sensor tech as well. As they start to read out faster, the faster you can read out a sensor, the more autofocus calculations you can do a second. And that just kind of builds on that whole cycle of the better the algorithms can be. So there's a lot of excitement that I'm seeing in the future. But in terms of what we'll actually see, that's we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm not even going to ask you those types of questions. I just wanted to draw your attention to that patent application, because it's one of those where and there's two based on that kind of gets you excited. And if you read the details, you're going like, man, they're really thinking outside the box here. And
but you have to watch out.
Oh, I know. That's why I look to see how many applications on a given...
I saw so many Sony patents about crazy stuff, and then it never becomes true. Also, the global shutter, it will take years before the global shutter on a high resolution sensor, I think.
Canon's been doing global shutter patents for 8 years.
Exactly. And I will say that while the camera side of things is obviously the main focus for Nikon, that's where a lot of our dollars come in from. But we have a lot of other businesses out there. So even though we might patent something, a new technology, new sensor, it might seem really interesting for the camera side of things, but our engineers may have patented it for one of our medical industries or for our robotics industry. So there's a lot of crossover. So I will just say that while it is interesting, as Andrea said, we may not always be utilizing it on the front end for the photo side. It may be something that we never, I say us regular consumers, see, because it goes into one of our more kind of industry based businesses.
Well, what I noticed too is depending on the scope of the thing, such as autofocus, as I saw with Canon, what you see is you'll see an independent application for each type of product segment if it's going across the range. But this is where it does give me a headache, because you're taking an engineer document that's been proved by lawyers, that's been machine translated, and it usually gives me a headache. But you can get a sense for if it's camera based, if it's security based, if it's imaging, if it's medical. But no, let's go back to your camera bag, because I'm not going to ask you questions on things that you're. I don't want to put you on the spot for stuff that I know that no one's going to be able to have answers for. But going back to your camera bag, because we talked about the camera, we talked about lenses, but there's other things that are kind of important too. What else do you put in your camera bag other than apple juice and treats for the kids?
It depends. I'll usually try and bring a tripod if I can. If it's just a pure family trip, I'm probably not going to bring the tripod with me. I'll maybe bring one of those tiny little ones just so I can set it up on a rock and get a nice little family shot as we're hiking in the mountains. But if I'm doing a more dedicated photo trip, I will bring my tripod as well, especially if I think there's any opportunity for night stuff. And if there is opportunity for night stuff and I am bringing my tripod, I'm definitely going to be going and bringing our remote trigger. We have a number of them. I go for the radio one just because I like to do some light painting. So if all the stars align and everything works out, I'll go do some light painting, and I'll bring some sort of flash with me. I'll be able to be 50, 60, 70 feet away and to trigger the camera through radio, and I'll know that I always have kind of full reliability and I don't have to rely on infrared, or I'm not stuck just a foot or two away using a remote wired trigger.
Anything else?
I think that's about it. Extra batteries, couple extra cards, and then tripod and trigger. That's usually kind of my go-to kit.
May I ask a question to Chris?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, just a philosophical question, because I understood he knows the history of photography when he talked about film area, Canon, autofocus, and so forth. He now talked about his camera bag. Now let's play a game. I want to ask him, in 10 years from now, how will his camera bag be? What's his guess? Because imagine, smartphones are getting better. The Chinese, like DJI, are making different kind of cameras that are very popular, and there's a lot of new competition technology coming. How is your bag going to be in 10 years from now? What's your bet on this?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I don't know. So my first thought goes to my lenses. What are my lenses going to look like in 10 years? And just on the physics of it, if we look at a lens now versus 10 years ago versus 20 years ago, if it's a full frame lens and it's an f2.8 lens, it has to be a physical size of a certain dimension, just purely based on physics. So lenses wise, I'm not sure. They may get a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter. Maybe the quality gets better, because we've seen that already in the last 5-6 years. So maybe the lenses get a little bit smaller, but I print a lot. So a lot of our walls in the house are actually printed images. And as good as the phones have gotten, my wife all the time says, "Oh, can you go and print this photo?" And I'll look at it and go, "Ooh, that's a smartphone photo. I don't know." And we try it, and it just doesn't look anywhere near as good. And even she says, "You know what? No, we're gonna go put one of the proper photos up that we're taking with a camera." So these guys are getting better. We all know that, but I don't know that. Knowing how much I rely on it to print, I don't know how much better it'll get. So I think I'll still rely on a dedicated lens, and I'll usually a dedicated portrait lens. So I don't know. I will say that I have seen myself shift a little bit more towards the super zooms. I've brought the 28 to 400 and the 28 to 400 and the 24 to 200 on some recent trips. And I got to tell you, I can be a little bit snobby in terms of my lens selection. Those lenses blew me away in terms of the sharpness. So I'll say that maybe in 10 years, the ultra zoom or super zoom type of lens, if they keep getting better and better to where they are, that may find a bigger place in my bag, just because they're way better than what I think we used to consider as an acceptable lens in terms of sharpness and aberrations and all that. They're getting way better, to the point that I've now brought on a couple trips just a 28 to 400 with me, and I've loved it. So I don't know that I've answered your question, but that's kind of where I see it in the near future.
Yeah, thanks.
Now, just before I introduce Wes Perry, following up on what Chris was saying, again, he wasn't kidding. Almost everything that Nikon is selling in terms of cameras and lenses is on sale. But if you're a high-end professional photographer, wildlife photographer, definitely take a look at the 600 and 800 millimeter. Those are some serious savings. Those as a Canon shooter, it's like I look at those and go like, my God, that's an incredible deal. And these are U.S. prices, by the way, but to save $3,600, to save $4,800, just absolutely stunning, those deals. But now I want to introduce Wes Perry, who is also from Canada. He's a commercial photographer and videographer way out on the East Coast. Wes Perry, thank you for joining us. Just to let you know the guests we
Thanks
have in
for
the room
having me.
right now. We have Andre Pizzini from a YouTube channel by the same name and Sony Alpha Rumors. And we have Chris Ogonuk from Nikon Canada. So welcome, Chris.
Amazing.
Wes, how are you today?
Nice to see you all. Andrea
Hi.
Pizzini, the infamous fellow himself.
Oh, shit.
famous, not infamous.
Okay.
Now, since you're joining at the 9 o'clock, geez, I can't speak here. I've had some I've been up since 6 and I'm still not awake yet. Would you have any questions for Chris? Because I don't think, Chris, you have much more time you can join with us here this morning.
Yeah, I have a hard out about 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah.
All right. So, Wes, do you have any questions about Nikon that you would like to pose to Chris?
Oh, goodness. Actually, I do have one question, but it might be too interstitial. A friend of mine who is a Nikon shooter with a Z8, yesterday he contacted me. He just updated his firmware. He only does it about once a year. And all of a sudden, gotta reach into my bag here. No, not there. All of a sudden, his Godox X Pro and X Pro 2 triggers no longer communicate with his camera, but the new Nano or X3 trigger does. And obviously he has no idea why. I'm a Sony shooter, so I have not experienced that myself. I'm not sure what happened in that Z8 firmware update that disabled the previous iterations of the Godox triggers. I don't know if you had any ideas there.
No, I do try and test third-party flashes and strobes every once in a while, just to kind of get a sense of myself. I hear obviously about it just like this with other users, but I do like to test it on the gear. I will have the opportunity in the near future to actually try some Godox stuff on there, just to see if I'm able to replicate that. But I haven't heard anything else from the 2.01 firmware update. But if you do want to get a hold of me, you can go through Simon, and we can kind of carry this on later.
Cool. Yeah, I asked him to update the firmware on the Godox trigger, but that's much more difficult than updating the firmware on the Z8 is.
Yes.
Thankfully, Nikon makes firmware updates very easy, unlike Sony.
Oh, I've just pressed the wrong button again. There we go.
Very beautiful, though.
Now, one thing I want to say, Chris, is I definitely appreciate you coming to my channel to talk about all things Nikon. It means an awful lot to me. I don't own Nikon, but I keep dreaming of the day when I can support three actually. I'd love to have both Nikon, Sony, and Canon, but because of me growing up, Nikon is one of the top brands that I kept hearing about. So I'm really excited. I think my first camera is going to be a Z8 or a Z8 Mark II. I just don't know when it's going to be.
Yeah, I borrowed that camera from him for a little while, and it's a great body.
Yeah, it really is. So since you've got to be going in a few minutes, any final thoughts you'd like to give us here on Black Friday about some of the deals that are going on today?
Honestly, we've kind of covered a lot of it already, so I'll keep it pretty short. But the two standouts to me are honestly the Z8, just at 800 Canadian dollars off, and the Z6 III. Even though we just came out with it, it's 400 Canadian off. So those are kind of the standouts. But if you go and check out our website, there is a lot on there. That you can kind of get a sense for what is on sale. And if you go to your local authorized Nikon dealer, then they'll have that deal. And then who knows, even more if you walk in and actually talk to them in person. It's a really exciting time of the year to be buying new gear.
Yeah, I think after this stream, I'm going to do some real deep thinking. Do I need a new computer or do I need a Z8? Or do I need both? And that's something I got to think of too, right?
Probably both if you get a Z8. Got to shoot those raw video files and need a new computer for that.
Well, you know what, the R5, it's the same thing, right? You're at that same level, and this M1 Ultra can really deal with stuff. The problem isn't the capacity of the machine. It's when I add the plugins to Final Cut that it bogs things down. But anyhow, Chris, thank you so much for attending. I very much appreciate it, and I look forward to the next Nikon announcement.
Great. Thank you guys very much for having me today.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
Nice to see you.
All right. Well, we have two other guests joining us on the hour, and again, we already introduced Wes a little bit. So, Wes, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a photographer based out of New Brunswick. What kind of stuff do you shoot?
During the summer, mostly weddings. Over the winter, mostly commercial work and real estate. I do documentary video shoots as well. So keep pretty busy doing lots of different things. Also the YouTube channel, Wes Perry.
Yeah. I keep pressing the wrong button again. Let's bring up your... See, believe it or not, I was prepared, but I'm so tired and I'm not on drugs. I'm not on anything. I'm 54 and I'm tired.
Might need to be on coffee.
Well, I have it here, but it's not doing its trick. So thank you, Wes. And also our other guest who just joined us. I've been looking to have Anthony on the channel for a long time, but I keep forgetting to welcome you, Anthony. Anthony has an interesting background. Let's bring up the correct bio here.
Come on, get the right one. Come on.
Oh, I think I already passed it. So Anthony is a photographer. He's an engineer, and he is, correct me if I'm wrong here, Anthony, you're the founder, owner, or president of Camera Canada, whose ads I keep seeing whenever I watch Camera Conspiracies.
That's true. That is true. Guilty on all counts. So yes, the Camera Canada website was since 2001 we launched it. So it's been around for a long time, relatively speaking, and the company's been around since '88.
Wow.
I've bought a few cameras from you.
Thank you, Wes. I was about to say that, so thank you very much. I appreciate that. But I'm also, as Simon would say, I'm also a photographer, so I'm a keen photographer. I love photography. I've been in the photography business since 1985. So long time.
That is a long time. I can go back to 79, but it was one of those Kodaks Instamax when I was 9.
That's right.
Didn't get my proper camera. So before we jump into the Black Friday coverage and kind of what you shoot with, both Wes and Anthony. Anthony, you're an engineer. What kind of engineer? That I always whenever somebody's an engineer, my ears always perk up a little bit.
Well, I went to University of Waterloo Systems Design Engineering, which is a little computer with a little mechanical engineering, and I did a graduate in environmental engineering at Western. So I'm a master. I'm a smart guy. Don't forget that. But then
and humble.
I did an MBA at Laurier because I said, forget this engineering stuff. I want to be a businessman because that's where the big bucks are.
Yeah.
And so I basically did those degrees, and I settled into a career at Kodak. Remember Kodak?
Oh yeah.
So Kodak, I worked there 12 years in the world of film, and then Kodak. I had to leave Kodak because this thing called digital. You might have heard of digital, Simon. I don't know. And then this company in London, Ontario, was afraid of digital, so we took it into the digital realm, went online, and the rest is history. So basically, been in the industry since Kodak in 1985.
That's exciting. What got me or kept me in this is there was a computer in the 80s called the Amiga. and it got me into video graphics. Then I went into college and I worked in their video department with Sony Beta recorders and players with 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch. I almost went into video, and then I kind of forgot about it for a while. And then it was right around 20, 25 years ago, I got back into photography. And then when my son was born, went right into video. So I find your story very fascinating and interesting. And unlike you, I didn't learn until later. I got a business degree, but I didn't found my own company until about 2 years ago. And, that was my mistake. But thank you for joining us. And Wes, what kind of, tell us a little bit about what's in your camera bag. And as you do that, what I'll do is I'll see if that stuff is on sale, and I'll bring it up on the screen so we can tie into Black Friday. So, yeah.
Simon, quickly, I have
Yes.
to leave.
Oh, you've got to go. Oh, you're not
Yeah,
Chris.
yeah, yeah, no.
I got the name mixed up.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay.
And you know what? Andrea is always welcome on the channel. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it today. And then the last minute, he said, I can come in, which is why I don't have his name properly all set up and all this. But Andrea, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your support. And I wish you all the best. And guys, please, if you haven't already subscribed to his YouTube channel, please go ahead and do so. It's Andrea Pizzini Photography. And when it comes to Sony stuff, he's always number one. Thanks very much for joining us, Andrea.
See you. Bye.
See ya.
Cheers. All right, so let's go to this other screen here. So Wes, the floor is back to you.
Wow, how deep do we want to go in the bag today? There's a lot of stuff in there.
Well, start from the top.
Okay.
Now change the name.
I'm gonna
Oh,
get
look.
the actual bag out here.
Oh, this is great. We might have to go full screen on you. Let me just update your name first.
Oh, I'm on two things now. Amazing.
You're special.
Yeah.
You're special.
That's going to change shortly.
He's
Let's-
cloned me. That could make my workflow much better.
There we go. Now see, you've said that. Now you're not on any screen. Hold on a minute. I'll bring you back. The software, I'm the only one doing this show. I'm a one-man show, so it takes time to update everything, but I do like the flexibility that it gives. So go ahead and start, Wes. I'll give you full screen
All right.
in just a moment.
I'm using the Brevite Jumper backpack because it doesn't scream steal me. It's just looks like a backpack, but it's a camera bag.
You know what? I have a really old bag that my wife keeps saying, you need to update. I said, no, it looks crap, so no one's going to want to grab it when it's on the wheel coming off the plane or anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, you don't want something, and if you buy a camera bag that's new, rough it up. Definitely rough it up.
I have it depends on the time of year what my main body is. During wedding season, I'm mostly using the A9 for a lot of stuff because just churning through thousands and thousands of photos, using an electronic shutter is so much better because you're not wearing out your camera and it's just much faster and easier. But I'm in winter mode right now, so my main body is the A7 IV because I do a lot more videography and commercial work in the wintertime. I have a SmallRig cage on it for video work, so I can snap that into a focus rig pretty easily. Got the Sony 85 G Master on there, the original one, haven't updated. I like the original one for like wedding work and so forth because it has a much dreamier look to it than the Mark II does, which is a much more clinical lens. Although I'd love to have the Mark II, I don't know if I would want to only have the Mark II.
Which would you say is your camera that you go to most of the times, Wes?
Well, like I say, in the winter, I'll pull out the other one here. In the summer, the A9 comes out a little bit more. In the winter, the A9 almost never comes out at all because almost everything that I'm doing is on off-camera flash, artificial lighting, and so forth, which the A9, the original A9, is not fantastic at. The mechanical shutter is just slow and loud, whereas the A7 IV has a much better mechanical shutter, better dynamic range, higher resolution, yada, yada, yada. So in the winter, the A9 kind of goes on the shelf, and the A7 IVs, which I have two of, come out as the main bodies.
All right, and probably what we're going to do, we're going to switch between you and Anthony, or, Anthony's going to fall asleep wondering what's going on here.
Well,
Anthony,
I'm not falling asleep. I'm interested in what Wes is shooting, but I as well.
And both of these bodies were bought at Camera Canada.
Oh, you're a sweetheart. I did not pay him to say that. And, talk to me. We'll get you a deal next time. I'm also a Sony shooter. I like the A1. I don't do weddings at all, but I shoot a lot of landscapes, and I have a couple A1s. And I'm going to Costa Rica on Wednesday, which means I'm going to take my little macro flash thing, this little Godox thing here. So I do a lot of wide angle, but obviously for birds, I'm using the 200 to 600, and I'm using various other lenses. If we're doing astrophotography, I like the 14. But I mean, my go-to lens is the 16-35 and the 24 to 70. But specialized lenses, I like Sony because they have the 90 macro is an excellent lens. 14-1.8 is an excellent lens. And for portraiture, I use an 85. But I don't do as many portraits when I'm on trips. But obviously, if it's a trip to Costa Rica where there's birds and frogs and bats, you need something big like this guy. So a lot of this 200 to 600, and I also have a 600 f4 that I use, which is a major expense, but I love it. So the whole wildlife travel thing depends on the bag. I also brought the bag. I like a Mindshift bag. I'm a Mindshift fan. The reason I like Mindshift is it screams, steal me. I love this. Steal me. Just like Wes, you didn't want it to be stolen. I want cameras to be stolen because every camera retailer loves thieves. Okay, so that means
It's sell another one.
It's sell another one. So let's face it. I want a bag that says "steal me," but I seriously, there's 3 Mindshift bags. This is the small one. I have a medium one, and I have a big one back there. But the point is that it depends on the trip. Mindshift backlight is what it's called. They have a small, medium, and large, and it depends on how much gear I'm taking. So I love the Mindshift bags, and yes, they are kind of loud, but they hold the gear you need depending on the trip. So if I'm taking a lot of stuff, I need the big one. If I'm taking just a few things, I need the small one. And when I do landscape photography, I'm a GFX shooter as well. I love the Fuji GFX. So I do a lot of landscapes with the GFX system. I find, yes, 100 megapixels is probably overkill, but when you edit these files, it's insanely good. However, from a workflow point of view, it's insanely tedious because 100 megapixel in Photoshop, you have 5 layers. Suddenly you have this massive file. Wes, as you know, this is not a good wedding camera. Would not be good for rapid shooting. But if you want a good quality photo and you want to spend time on Photoshop with layers, there's nothing better than a 100 megapixel file that's well shot. You can start tweaking every single shadow, midtone, highlight, and get excellent results. So I'm a medium format shooter on selected trips that are landscape. My main system is Sony for action and wildlife, but this is good for landscapes. So that's what's in my bag.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Wes, you've got a lot of stuff in your bag too. So let's bring it back over to you and see what else you've got in your bag.
You can't have B&H Photos website on the screen.
Oh, you know what? I wasn't even.
Oh man, that's a dagger to my heart. I mean, come on, you got to support Canada.
Oh no, I do. The main reason for using U.S. pricing is, only 5% of my audience is Canadian, whereas.
Oh no, but put B&H. Well, we sell very, very little to the States, but we have some U.S. customers that enjoy shopping at our store. But obviously, there's a border, and B&H is a big entity in the States. We all know that, so they're a good company, obviously, and we hope to be satisfying the Canadian market well.
Well, I've got to buy something from Canon Canada in the future. The problem with me is I'm very loyal, and I've been dealing with this guy Patrick at Downtown Camera who's been really good to me. So, I tend to be very loyal, but I also believe in, you support your economy, and, I'm going to have to make a purchase at Canon Camera Canada in 2025. I don't know what it's going to be. Maybe
Downtown Camera. Downtown Camera belongs to the same buying group. So I'm with Downtown Camera, the owner there, Harry. Great guy. So there's nothing bad to say about any of the photo retailers in Canada. It's a small group. Let's face it. So we all know each other. So that no one's an enemy of anybody else. Obviously, I'd like the business, but Downtown Camera is a great store too. So if you have an ally there, go for it. But many allies, we have a lot of allies too. So if we can satisfy you, we will. Yeah.
No, and that's if you can share it around a little bit, and that's what I do. Like what I'll do, and he's not paying me to do this. After this video, I'll just add a link or a phone number in the description so people can choose to buy from Downtown Camera. They can choose to buy from Camera Canada. You know, I believe in, you know, supporting your local camera stores, guys. It's very, very important because, you know, the market's shrinking, and the more we can do to support our local economies. I still like B&H, I still like Adorama, but if you've got a local camera store in your city, even in the United States, support them because, you know, they need your love too. And the great thing about local stores is you can go in there, you can touch the stuff, you can talk to them, you've got the experience. So that's my thought on that. But yeah, we'll spend a little bit of time on Camera Canada. I got to stop changing the size of things. But yeah, Wes, hand it back over to you. Tell us a little bit about what else is in your camera bag.
Sure, lots more, because got to be prepared for anything. I also have another A9, but probably not the one you're thinking of.
Which one?
This is the Minolta A9.
Oh, that's definitely not what I was thinking.
Because, you know, love the A9, got to go both ways.
Now
so this is my
that's what
film
Sony
camera.
bought, right? That's where the Alpha line came from, Minolta.
So this is the direct heritage of the Sony cameras, the Minolta cameras. And interestingly, this for many, many years, until the Sony A9 Alpha 9 digital camera came out, was the only camera that had above 1/8,000th of a second shutter.
Wow.
And this came out in early 90s, late 80s. Yeah. And so the fast shutter speeds is the A9's heritage.
See, one thing us videographers do, we feel like, see, we talk, it's kind of like being Chinese. You have the same character set, but there's different languages. We say shutter. We say aperture. We say f-stop. We say ISO. But it means completely different things to us. You know, me, a fast shutter, I'm not going to shoot at 1/8,000th. It's not possible unless I'm shooting at, you know, 4,000 frames per second. And you know, that rule of 180 or the shutter of 180, it's not a hard and fast rule. And I will shoot at 340 on the shutter, but it's a very different world for us because usually you want it, whatever you're shooting in terms of frame rate, whether it's 24, 30, 60, then your shutter should be twice that. And with my camera, since I'm not using any ND filters with the R5, what I find I end up doing is I set the ISO to 800, so I can't really change it. I can go to 1600 or 32, but generally I keep it at 800 if I'm shooting outside. I set the shutter to 1/60th, and then I'm using the aperture to properly control the exposure. Because I'm a minimalist, I don't want to carry a lot of gear.
You want ND filters and such?
I don't use any of them. I don't use clear. And there's a reason. I used to use them for years, but the problem is you always forget. You get into one of those lighting situations, especially like a Christmas tree, and you get all the reflections. And after the fact, I'm like, I forgot to take it off. So I just don't shoot with it anymore. I always make sure I have a hood on, so I'm protecting, unless somebody comes up and directly pokes the lens itself. I'm willing to take that chance. I'm a bit of a minimalist. You don't see a lot of gear. I don't have cages hooked up my cameras. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I just keep it simple.
I do pretty regularly end up shooting above 1/8,000th of a second for photos, especially if you're using prime lenses at f1.4. So if I'm tracking like the number of images that I've delivered to clients, just sorting through my gallery here. So images in excess of 1/8,000th of a second, 3,730 photos that I've delivered to clients at those shutter speeds of like 1/12, 1/16,000th, 1/32,000th. So it does get used.
Yeah, and so with the new global shutter in the A9 III,
I think that's still 1/32,000th, as far as I know. Or does it go higher?
I think it goes higher. Now, Anthony, do you know if it goes higher?
I don't know, but I think it's higher.
Well, let's take a look.
Oh, 1/80,000th.
I thought it was something ridiculous.
Yeah.
That is insane. Surface of the sun at f1.2.
You know, I actually, you know, Anthony and Wes, I shot the sun a little while ago. I got these ND filters, but I wasn't too confident with them. They were like 18 stops or something, and it did the job, but it's the product is the only product I get, but I need something better. And who knows, maybe that's something you can help me with, Anthony. But I do enjoy shooting the sun. I love to see the sunspots. Now, when I actually shot it, there was only one sunspot, and it was pretty boring. But yeah, I love shooting bizarre things like the sun or the moon.
Yeah, for the Eclipse, I did order specifically a solar filter from K&F.
Did you have sun?
Oh, we had a full solar eclipse, and so I shot through that with a friend of mine who had the 200 to 600,
Let's
and
see
so I
if
bought the filter for his lens.
I wish it was cloudy here, but let me see if I have. I'll bring it up here. No, got to go back a little further, I think. Where do I have the sun? All right, right about here. So there you go. That's, I can't remember what, I think that was 4K fine. That was with the 800 millimeter f11, I believe. It wasn't even the 200 to 800. And you can see that it looks pretty big. I think that was 4K fine. Sun's pretty big. Some people think it's small. It's not. It's just gigantic, the size of the sun. But I want to do it again. And what I did before, I don't want to use those. I just don't. You got to use a certain solar filter, and just using an ND filter rated at 18 stops is not the way I would go.
No.
Anthony, have you ever shot astral bodies such as the moon, galaxies, stars?
Yes, stars, not the sun, but stars. I do some Milky Way stuff. It's on a few things on my website, but I like the slower shutter speeds. With if the moon and the sun are not involved, then I'm a happy camper, because then you have the Milky Way, and you can set your camera up to get something in front of, to have a silhouette or something. But I like the Milky Way. I like no moon evenings, and maybe a little glow for sunrise. Like if you're in there just before sunrise, you get that little glow in the east. I was in Bolivia on the salt flats which has a mirror surface. It's an amazing place to be in March, and you have the reflected Milky Way. So you have the Milky Way above the horizon, but then because it's all basically a mirror, it's a water salt flats. You have the mirrored Milky Way, so that's magical. So I don't do a lot, but when I do it, I like to enjoy it with either the 20 mil. I have the 20 mil Sony lens and the 14 mil, both f1.8, fantastic astro lenses. The 20 and the 14 are spectacular for astrophotography.
There's something magical about shooting the stars,
Yes.
planets, galaxies. Whenever I get out there, and usually I don't, like, I've been looking up at the stars and go, like, it's not cold enough yet. I like to get out there when it's December, January, because there's very little moisture in the air. Atmospheric turbulence isn't as bad, but my hands freeze every time. It's so cold. It's so hard to do. But I love it. Just love that feeling. And unfortunately, I live in the GTA, Anthony, and we talk, you know exactly where I live. And, there's so much light pollution here that the only thing worth shooting is the moon and Jupiter. But I'd love to get a little bit further north and
Go north. There's a lot of dark sky possibilities just sort of north of, and I guess northeast or northwest, not Barry way, but something a little east or a little west would be good for darker skies.
Yeah, that's a good point. I always keep thinking north of Aurelia. I keep thinking of Burke's
North of
Falls
Aurelia,
someplace.
yeah, that would work absolutely. Very north, obviously leapfrog Barry all the way up there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's utterly quiet. It's silent, and I don't know what it is, because we're always, as I said earlier, we're always used to looking down or across. We never look up. And when you look up, and when you see, like the first time, I'll show you the moon that I got, and this was again here shot in the Newmarket Aurora area. Let's bring that back up. Let's skip ahead to right about here. So this was shot with a 200 to 800 millimeter, and I believe it was 4K fine with a 2x extender. And to see the level of detail on the creators, I've been out several times in 2024 to try to replicate this, and I could never, ever, ever get the crispness, the sharpness, and the detail of the craters. And you don't want a full moon, because you'll notice the shadow in the craters, and that gives you the contrast, because when it's a full moon, you lose the shadows in the craters and you lose the contrast. But the level of detail I was just shocked. The unfortunate thing, of course, I thought, well, this was great success with the moon. Let's try Mars. It's our closest planet. Let's try Jupiter. But sadly, they're so far away or so small that you can't get the same level of detail. And that is, I still stare at it and I created a home movie, and that takes up about 5 minutes. And I just, everybody else will walk away, but I'll keep staring at it and just watching, just to be able to get that close. And that's the magic of this. And that's why I love cameras. It allows us to capture something that we couldn't see ourselves and then just lose ourselves in the moment.
True.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Had a moment there.
You got lost in the moment?
Yeah, well, no, it is.
You lost in the moment.
The reason I started this channel back in 2019 is I was looking to replace my 70D with the 90D. So I kept watching all the channels, kept watching all the websites, waiting to see what would happen. And then Canon announced it. And I thought, great, I'll get it. And I woke up the next morning thinking like, oh, they took away all I and they took away 24p. Okay, what is Sony doing? What is Nikon doing? What is everybody doing? But everybody was waiting. And I was watching a camera conspiracy video, and I thought, how hard can this be? Why don't I do this? And, if you ever get into business, and Anthony, maybe you can say that, you can comment on this, we all kind of ask ourselves the question, how hard can this be? And I've got an idea, let's do it. And I think it's a certain level of ignorance in what's involved that we're not aware of, that we go, yeah, let's do this. You have no idea the level of work and effort that you have to put into it. But I can say it's well worth it. Mm-hmm. I was able to take this as a hobby where I wanted to only make $100 to $200 a month to buy new gear. Because when you've got a child and you're married, you got a house, the last thing you want to do is spend money on yourself. And then in 2022, things were really changing, and I thought, let's change this into a real business, and I did. And so now I've got bigger goals. I want to move to Vancouver when I retire in 3 to 6 years, and I want this to help me prepare for that. And then this can be my full-time gig, and that's where I want to go. How did you? What gave you the impetus to start your own business, Anthony?
Me? Oh,
yeah.
Well, because I want, chicks for free. Isn't that the song? Drugs and chicks, and the adulation of the public. And I did that because businessmen like me, sexy guys like me, we get all the babes and we get all the money. I'm being facetious. I mean, I started. Let's face it, being your own boss is a thrill and a risk. It's a two-edged sword. Yeah. And I'm sure Wes would agree, and you would agree, Simon. And I'm sure people that are employed, like even Chris, I know Chris for a long time from Nikon. He's employed by Nikon, so he has to watch what he says, but at least Nikon has his back if he fumbles. If you're on your own, like me or Wes or you, then if you make a mistake, then you are the person at fault. I love that. But it's a thrill and a little bit risky and nervous at the same time. So I work for Kodak, big company, silly company in many respects. Leaving there to do your own thing is very risky, but I enjoy it because I love it. If I make a mistake, I'm the one to blame. But if I win big. So there's that double-edged sword. You have to watch what you're doing in business, make sure you're not making any silly mistakes. And I've made many mistakes. But the thrill of saying, we're going to do this, we're going to start a website, we're going to do many things. I'm the one that decides to do it. And I love it when it's almost like agriculture. You plant the seed and you see what happens. Simon, you want to go to Vancouver. You're planting the seeds. 6 years, maybe that'll happen. You'll watch it grow. And the metaphor of agriculture, or you can use the metaphor of children. I have 3 kids. Mine are older than your kids, but I mean, you don't know what you're going to get into when you have kids, but then you watch them grow and now they're gone. The empty nest is here. My wife and I, we wonder what happened in the last 30 years. However, the thrill is still there with children, with your own business as well. When you want to go in a direction, you choose the direction. You don't have to have a board of directors that's like from Sony or Canon or Nikon saying, you want to go in this direction. You might not believe in it. With your own, if you're your own boss, you believe in it. And you go in that direction. Same as, I'm sure Wes is the same way with his business. And you, Simon, your goals are obvious. You want to go out west. I love that. You're setting goals. 6 years from now, you'll hopefully attain those goals. But it'll be a good journey between now and then.
it's funny. I just had to fill the corporations, individuals significant interest piece last night. And the biggest thing they ask you is, who's responsible for making the decisions? And I got to say, that's the best part of this is having a strategy, having an idea, planting a seed and thinking, I'm going to do this. I'm going to the biggest idea that I had in the last couple of years was start doing live streams. And for a year and a half, I couldn't figure out how to do it properly. So I didn't do it. And then it hit me. I am the guy covering news and rumors, mostly leading up to the event. And then you've got Tony Northrup and all these guys coming along with their hands-on reviews. And I thought, what a better way to transition from the rumors and the hype, the buy on rumor, sell on fact kind of thing, and then doing a live stream to hand it over. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was a perfect way to tie it in, and it worked, and it's been so successful. And what you said about you make the decisions and you hope they work well, and when they do, you get that great sense of accomplishment for having received that. And Wes, I'd like to know your thoughts on this too, because people who are thinking of becoming a photographer, they have this vision, and I'd like to know a little bit about your early start and how you got involved in photography as well.
It was very much a how hard could it be as well.
It's for the women. You know, Wes. It's for the women. I know.
Money for nothing.
Money for nothing. Chicks for free. Come on.
I was involved with a theater company, and we were having trouble getting photos of performances, headshots, promo pictures, and so forth. Partnering with photographers, paying them. Either we just wouldn't get anything back, or we'd get like almost nothing back, or the results would be mediocre. And so I was like, how hard could this be? I'll get a camera, I'll do that. And it turns out it can be hard. It can be very complicated, and it's a long road, and it just very quickly snowballed from there. And that was probably 11, 12 years ago that process started.
What are some of the big lessons learned you've had that you can share with us?
Oh goodness, I didn't mentally prepare myself for that.
Well, and that's, you see, that's, for me, my day job, I'm an enterprise architect. And whenever we're working with a new client, the first things we started, what's your vision, right? Mm-hmm. And quite often we hear, they have to think about it. It's not on the top of their head. And I'll say, okay, well, let's try something else then, because people love to complain. And I say, well, what are the biggest problems you have? And boom, 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 they start to come out. Mm-hmm. Say, okay, well, these are your problems. So so what are your goals then? What do you want to try to accomplish? And it depends on whether I'm at the C-suite level, the director level, because then I start to focus on vision, goals, and objectives. If I'm dealing with boots on the ground, if I'm dealing with the tactical side of the business, project managers and such, then I start to ask, well, I'll start with what capabilities are you looking for? And then it evolves into, what are your pain points? Because lessons learned are really helpful, not only in going like, wow, I don't want to do that again, but it helps us plan for the future. So anything you want to share with us in terms of lessons learned?
I think a big mistake that people make, especially in photography and starting their business, is going broke before having a plan. Like a lot of people, they'll dump $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on camera equipment before they've even really learned to take pictures well, before they've figured out even what audience or type of photography they're planning on getting into. They just bite off more than they can chew, get themselves into trouble, and then just kind of burn right out. Whereas with photography, the nice thing about it is it's pretty easy to ease yourself into, although it's tempting to not do so. It's very easy to just take very small jobs here and there, slowly learn what you're doing. You can get good results with cheap equipment, with used equipment, with borrowed equipment. You don't need to buy an A1 Mark II to start your photography business by any means.
Yes. Oh, so sometimes I feel like I'm Top Gear. More of a Jeremy Clarkson. I'm not the prettiest guy in the room. And I'm not insulting Jeremy Clarkson. What I'm trying to say is these guys run around in some of the fastest, most incredible cars, but where they have the most fun is when they go off-road in these $1,500 cars. Mm-hmm. And sure, I'm sporting an R5 Mark II, and the main reason I'm doing that is, to be honest with you, is that's what gets the most views. I see this from analytics. You guys, whether you want to buy it or not, are most interested in the R5 Mark II, the flagship, not the flagship cameras like the Z8s, the A7 IVs, that's what you want to see. So I buy it and I use it, and I love using it. But that doesn't mean to say you have to get the best. I have people asking me all the time about, I'm looking at starting a channel. What camera do I need? And I said, well, what do you have? And I said, well, I don't have anything. I said, well, you can start with your phone. You can start right there. That's all you need. People like Mr. Beast worked on his iPhone until he got 100,000 subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of any photographer, and Anthony, I'm sure you can chime in here, but any photographer will tell you it's about talent. You put a camera, any camera, in a photographer's hand, and they'll be able to produce good results. Yeah, what's your experience with that, Anthony? Because people don't often believe that it's true. They think I'm kidding when I talk about an iPhone will work or a 20-year-old camera will work.
The cynic in me says that you need the A1 Mark II, and Wes, you need an A1 Mark II. Because it's not the golfer, it's the golf clubs. Now, of course, I'm tongue in cheek there. It's the same with many industry. Name me an industry where the manufacturer says that you need this new product, you need this new driver, this new 9-iron, and that'll make your golf game better. I mean, I live in that industry where Canon tell me the R5 Mark II is important, and Sony tell me the A1 Mark II is important. Nikon, via Chris, is saying that get a Z8, Z9, whatever. I live in that industry. We all do. But you are absolutely right, Simon. It's the person behind the camera, and it really makes my blood boil when people say that's a nice picture, and you go, this is a beautiful picture. What camera do you use? That drives me nuts. And
your camera takes nice photos.
Exactly. And the comeback is usually saying, that's a nice meal. You must have a nice stove. You know what I mean? So that's the key is we all live in this industry that people assume that the person behind the camera, that it's not Wes's talent that makes the great photo. It's Wes's camera. And the fact that he has an A9 Sony means that he must take good pictures, because if he used a crappy camera, he wouldn't take good pictures. So untrue. We all know that. But we live in an industry like that's so focused on the next best thing, like a golf, it's like Golf Town. I liken photography to golf or any other sport, that I could be a good hockey player if I just have better pads or better hockey stick. And that's so untrue, but that's what we live in. That's the world we live in.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. And Wes, I'm going to put a little bit of honesty on the line here, and maybe you'll appreciate this yourself. But when I got the R5, not this guy here, the Mark I, which I'm filming with right now, I thought, wow, I'm going to be able to do some amazing stuff. And I did. But I went from that 70D, and I was doing AMA streams in my backyard with the 70D. Everything looked great. And I went to the R5. I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't figure out the exposure, because everything on the R5 there's no dummy modes. There's one, but nobody uses it, not even me, because it's so dummy proof that you can't do anything with it. So it wasn't until I hit about 8 months that all of a sudden I had this epiphany, and angels going, and models dancing around, that I realized, oh my God, this is what I need to do. And it all came together. Everything I'd learned, everything I talked about, it came together at once. And I realized if you're going to shoot with log, and you have to shoot with log. Okay, so this is how you're going to work with log. You're going to set Zebra 1 to 35%. You're going to attach it to the button on the front, the depth of field button, so you can toggle it on and off. So when you've got a subject in front of you, you can go ahead and actually determine if they're exposed properly. Bang on. You're going to use full manual settings. You're going to set the ISO here. You're going to set this. You're going to set that. And I was, wow, everything looked amazing. And so when I got the R5 Mark II and it had waveforms, I knew what to do with it. It made sense to me. And don't be afraid to, when you are ready to get some good gear, to buy a camera that exceeds your capabilities. It's like any job, and you'll see this on the internet from Bloomberg and others, that whenever you're looking to get into a new job, a new position, you never want to get into a job where it's the same thing. It requires the same level of experience and knowledge that you have. You want to move into a job where where you have maybe 50 to 75% knowledge. Same thing with cameras, because it's going to challenge you, but you're going to be able to swim. For me, with the R5 Mark II, it was such a huge jump from the 70D that I had trouble swimming. I started panicking at times. But, you know, part of it is learning too. And Wes, is that ridiculous, or does that kind of ring a little bit to you as well?
Oh, not at all. And honestly, I see it all the time. Now, for me, I have an engineering background, and so my...
2 engineers.
Yes. So my
You did it for the chicks,
first
right?
instinct, obviously. So my first instinct is to learn everything even before I get into that next camera or this next device or something. And so it's never a big surprise to me. But most photographers are more artistic by nature. And so it's very, very common thing.
I didn't do that because I was in Safari.
Uh-oh.
He's gone, and it went so quickly. I wonder if it was just a network connection.
Maybe.
It's
You can
too
still
bad,
hear
'cause
me okay?
yeah.
You can hear me?
Oh yeah, you're fine.
Okay.
We're still live. Because I was in Safari, I was shifting things around when I saw some of the deals you have on at Camera Canada.
Yeah.
So I think he'll be back. It's probably just, I hate it when we were, 'cause one thing I love the new gear, and it excites me the most because it, you know, we're at a point in our society where, you know, just trying to get Wes to join here, can't do multiple things at the same time, where we haven't developed the best camera. We're constantly innovating, creating something better. And, you know, Wes was talking about how a lot of us are creatives, and I'm one of those rare, unique individuals. I took this test at work years ago, HBDMI, and it's basically broken down into 4 sections. So in this section over here, you have people who are very analytical. And then down below, you have the people who are very process-oriented. Then you have people that are very visionary, and then people who are very emotional. And it doesn't mean that they cry and all that time, but they think with their heart. They think it's just very emotionally driven decisions. And I was one of the 1% of the population that was equally weighted in each section. And so I appreciate the creative side that you were talking about, Wes, but then I also have the business side that says, you know, you can't afford to lose your shirt here. So I don't take huge risks. But Wes, please continue. I don't know what happened there, but you just it was like an immediate
I reached
cut.
for something on my desk and I unplugged the USB-C cable coming from my camera. Getting a little flimsy on the end there.
Yeah, no
But yeah, I
worries.
think that you're pretty much covered there in that, like I see, it's all too common, and it's nothing to be ashamed of for someone to get a new camera, a photographer, a creative, and they're utterly bewildered by all the things going on inside of it. It's a very common thing, and it's just a process. It takes time to learn each step of the way and so forth, to finally get into log video, to get into zebras, to get into even shooting raw for some people. But everybody has to start somewhere. No need to be ashamed of that.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to jump in, talk about some Black Friday deals I didn't earlier. We're seeing this, and instead of actually going to Camera Canada, I'm going to put Anthony on the spot and have him tell us about some tripod deals. But what I'm seeing is Sackler and Manfrotto. We're seeing incredible deals. I'm talking, 50, 40% off. And also, consider used. Now, with B&H 9 and above rating, I picked up a 504X a couple of years ago for $629 US. And it came with is it this headset? Nope, it's another one. And, the thing with tripods, they're not like lenses. If something is a little bit broken, it's easy to fix with a wrench and a screwdriver. Very easy to fix. So, and I don't care if they have scratches because it's very easy to put scratches on. So, Anthony, in terms of tripods at Camera Canada, what do we have going on there today?
Well, I don't know about tripods because everything's on sale. It's crazy. Camera Canada sale day, No, I mean, in terms of tripod deals, Manfrotto has some deals on. we sell Siri. We don't sell stack.
Siri.
Yeah, Siri. We sell FLM tripods, which are very good. But I mean, it's if things are typically going to be in that they target one thing. So in other words, Manfrotto would say, here are the handful of tripods that are 5% off or 10% off, and they kind of cherry pick their line. So the Be Free one you have on there, they're cherry picking. There's some big deals on those, and then they're going to have, those might be the models that are last year's models, and
Yes.
that goes without saying. I'm more familiar with what's on sale for cameras. You asked me to prepare for this, but if you are a camera buff, like Nikon, for example, the Z8's in play, but not the Z9. So it's almost like the second tier is the one that they're playing with. The Z6 Mark, the Z5, the R5 is pretty aggressively priced because the R5 Mark II is announced. So manufacturers aren't stupid. They have the second best, or what was the top is now on sale. And Olympus does that with the OM1 version 1. OM1 version 1 is a great deal right now, not the OM1 version 2. So you have those sort of offers. Like I said, the Z8 Nikon, Canon R5, Canon R10. The Canon R10, which is the little crop sensor camera, is extremely low priced for Black Friday. It's not the R50, which is their little bit better camera. Then the R7's a bit better. So each manufacturer is kind of playing ball with certain product. Canon R5 as an example, instead of the R5 Mark II. No one's discounting their flagship yet, but they're kind of playing with the number 2, if that makes any sense. I mean, I have a list here. There's also there's Fuji, for example, XT5 instead of the XH series, and then the Panasonic S5 version 2. So there's a lot of manipulation, shall we say, with pricing, usually on the one just below the top, because they're not stupid. You know what I mean? There's a little bit, not the top one, but the one just below it is in play.
Well, I talked about that at the beginning of the video. I said one thing to caution people, especially when it comes to televisions, because televisions, people generally want to get the latest, is what you're seeing on Black Friday is all the clearing out older stock to make room for new stock. And this is why a lot of retailers will guarantee that if you buy it today and it goes on sale between now and Christmas, we'll refund you the difference. Because they know that the R5 Mark II, the high-end stuff, generally isn't going to go on sale. They know what to expect. But, when it comes to tripods, if it's last year's model or 5 years old, I really don't care, because there's not a lot of new technology in tripods. But also when it comes to certain, like I'm at the point where I've kind of committed, Anthony, and maybe this is something we can do with you in 2025, but I want to get the R7 Mark II when it comes out. I don't need another full frame camera on the Canon lineup, but I need a quality APS-C. And I feel like that's something I'm missing. The 70D is a bit too old. Doesn't take my new RF lenses. So I'm whatever Canon does with that R7 II, I'm going to get it.
Yeah, I've heard nothing other than rumors, and you're connected with the rumor mill as well.
Yeah, so there's nothing substantial, nothing solid at this point, other than Canon Rumors is coming out and saying that, it should be happening in 2025, and it's going to have a stack sensor. It's going to be a big update. But, for that to happen late in 2025, it could easily get pushed into 2026.
Yeah, I've heard nothing, so I'm not connected.
So looking at Camera Canada here, you're talking about the R50. That's an R5.
Oh, the
right now.
R10.
R10.
So the R10 is the one tends to be priced, like Canon have their pecking order in terms of cameras, just like Sony, So the R10 is the one that's kind of got the, it should be scrolling down. The R10 somewhere down there. There it is. So like we're talking, $300 off on a $1,700 camera in terms of percentage is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So that's quite a large discount, as opposed to a 5% discount or or an added memory card. Sometimes these things are like that's $400 off on a body, so that's pretty good deal for $1,000 in Canada. So whatever the percentage, that $379 value plus the card is it's just interesting. So that gets people into an APS-C camera inexpensively, and that $1,000 Canadian price point, whatever that is in US, 10 cents or something like that. But the idea is that Canon have played ball with the R10. There's an example. It's not the R7, right? So they're not playing ball with the R7 as much as they are with the R10. Maybe the R50 is also in play a little bit. So I think Canon's strategy with Black Friday is they want to keep the price points low, because that's who get affected by Black Friday, the Black Friday frenzy. They're not going to do an R5 Mark II. There's a little bit on R6 Mark II, a little bit of deals, but nothing major. So they're sticking at the R10, the R50, maybe the R7, not really. So anyway, that's what's happening. Tripods, there's very little on tripods. I do like Nikon's strategy, because they have like the Z50 and then the Z50 Mark II. Again, the Z50 Mark II is coming up, is the new one. So now they're targeting the Z50. They have a pretty good deal on the Z50 version 1, just like the Z6 version 2 is not the latest and greatest. So Black Friday, if you're surfing the Black Friday waves for pricing, you're going to notice that's the next best thing. You know, like that's B&H's website for $879 for an R10. That's US, so a grand Canadian blows that away.
Yeah, no, that's a situation where, because I know the US pricing, it's what I talk about all the time. So see $999 with a card,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
I
That's
was
the one they play ball with, you know.
Yeah, I was thinking of getting my son the R50 for Christmas, because it's right around that same price as regular. I told him, I said, if you do enough photography and learn, I'll get you one for Christmas. He hasn't, so he's not getting one. And I want him to get one, because then I get to play with it. But, you know, he's got to want to do it. And right now, Holy's interested in Flight Simulator. So I know he won't be watching this video, but I picked him up Microsoft Flight Simulator and a joystick. I want to get him into cameras more, because I need to be able to transition this business to him. You know, he's 10 now, but he'll be 20 in just a couple of years.
10 years.
No, it's going to seem like a couple of years. It's 10 years, but you know how things get accelerated. Did we lose Wes again?
He must have unplugged something. I don't know.
He must have unplugged something again.
This time my camera overheated.
Oh, man.
What camera is it? I have to ask.
A Sony A7 IV.
Okay, I don't know that. Now, I know with the Canon R5, I let people know that I had one guy reach out to me yesterday. If you're shooting with the R5, like I've been going for about almost 3 hours now with this camera, because it was an hour before. No sign of overheating. But with the Canon, what you do is you have the LCD flipped out for one, because the processor is behind it. You also have LCD standby, so it goes to low resolution if it gets hot. And you auto power off temp set to high. I don't like it.
That's a thing in Sony too, the power off temp set to high.
Yeah, do that, and I've never had it overheat. I've gone for 5 hours doing a live stream, and it's never overheated.
I've done all that. I just slapped my camera cooler fan on the back of it now. Got a little Ulanzi rig. I wasn't sure how long I'd be streaming here.
Well, that's why I bought, you know, I bought this, guys, because I thought, you know what, I've got this, I should do it so I can tell people whether I think it's a waste of money or not. So it's Canada, so the cooling part of it is a waste of money most of the time. and even in August, I didn't need the cooling. No sign of overheating, but maybe I'm a real photographer or videographer now, because what I do understand the power of is putting 2 batteries in here. So when I go out to shoot, I no longer have range anxiety, constantly looking at the battery to see if I'm running low. So
for me, my cameras didn't overheat when they were new, but they're both, A7 IV came out a while ago now. They both overheat way more now than they did when they were old. I don't know if it's because the firmware has changed or the thermal compound is broken down on the inside or what, but they overheat much more now than they did when they were new.
You're not the only person to tell me that. Stop the FOMO shot with all Sony cameras, and he told me that too. After about a year, his A1, A7 IV, they would start to overheat. I wonder if it's so I know with computers you use a thermal paste to help dissipate the heat, and sometimes companies don't put enough on. Maybe that
it can break down over time too.
Yeah,
depending on the quality of the thermal paste. So hard to say, but I have flashed the firmware on them as well to try to solve that, but that didn't change anything. And
you probably don't want to risk opening it up to check the thermal paste.
No. That would be something for Gentek to do at a very high cost.
Yes. Well, I know what Sony would say. You should get an FX3 or an FX30.
Obviously, yes.
Yeah. Have you shot with either of those?
I have not.
I'm going to check
I've
the
shot
deals.
with A7S3.
I could give you a deal, Wes. I could give you a pretty good deal. I
What
got
kind of deal?
FX3s on sale.
Oh yeah, got some Black
I
Friday
got
sales
an
there.
open box. I got an open box. I tell you. Anyway, just joking with you.
No. Look, one of the things, you're new to my channel, Anthony, and part of I don't mind people plugging what they do, because the reason I brought you on
Not at all.
is because of your experience in this area. So if you've got deals, I want you to tell people. Most of the time, people think that this is a U.S. channel because all I talk about is U.S. dollars, and I have mostly U.S. or foreign guests. But this is really kind of the first stream where it just kind of worked out. It's mostly all
We're all
Canadians
Canadians here.
Yeah, it's an all Canadian channel, eh? Okay.
Hey.
So for our next topic, eh? And if you don't know who that is, well, if you know who that is, you're laughing. If you don't, you're going, like, this guy's an idiot. But it's Canadian culture. It just is what it is. My R5 live stream, I had 5 people, Wes. Well, you were on that one, correct?
No, I was on the A12
No, the
live
A12.
stream.
So I had somebody from Australia, somebody
That hasn't
from,
popped back up in your channel yet.
Well, what happens is if you go to live streams, because every live stream video I have, I go unlisted
Yeah.
because it affects the algorithm. So if you go into my live streams folder, it should be there.
I haven't been able to find it there. The last one is the R1 R52 one. Sorry to interrupt your train of thought there.
Oh, no, the A12. No, I pulled that for a very good reason.
Oh.
I
I'm sorry.
forgot to hide my...
Was it all my profanities?
No. So I've got an old man brain, and so I forget stuff. So simple things such as not my login password, but in my favorites bar, I put certain codes. So when I go to my affiliate links and stuff like there, it was up there, and I thought, I better hide that. It shouldn't cause a problem, but I better hide it. And I hate doing that because I don't believe in... I rarely pull videos. The only time I usually pull videos if I did a review on something, let's say like some lights, and I had a massive failure and the company didn't want to do anything about it, or they didn't comment, then I have to pull the video because I no longer believe in the product, kind of thing. But I rarely pull videos. But gentlemen, we're coming up. Oh, we are 10 o'clock. Well, how about
10
that?
o'clock.
Well, look,
11 o'clock.
That's right. 11
Yes.
o'clock out east.
East Coast.
well, listen, I don't want to eat up all of your morning, so let's kind of round things down. I want to give you, Wes, a chance to talk about what's near and dear to you. You can talk about gear. You can talk about the business. You can talk about anything.
Oh, that's a tough one. Right now, a lot of my business strategy is around preparing, unfortunately, for like AI to disrupt and continue to disrupt the industry.
Oh, yes.
And I talk to a lot of photographers, obviously, that's kind of what I do. And so many of them just stick their heads in the sand about all of this. And they're like,
Yeah.
I saw AI once 2 years ago and it was terrible, so that'll never take over. Which, like, it's always changing and it's always advancing. And so I want my business to be positioned in such a way that it will be minimally affected, which would be like corporate videography, weddings, live events, YouTube, stuff like that. I do a lot of portraits and headshots and creative work, but a lot of that stuff is just going to go away. And stock photography and product photography, a lot of that stuff's going to disappear too and dry up, unfortunately.
Wow. So this is where I'm going to share a bit of honesty. I have staff now, and one of that staff is an AI. And here's where I use AI. I use AI. So if it's, let's say we've got a firmware update from Canon, it's just come out. I'm not even going to bother scripting much. I'm just going to grab the latest, what's changed, throw it onto a PowerPoint slide, do my quick intro of a few sentences, and then go right to shooting. But let's say I'm doing a review of, let's say this battery grip. I've got time. So I'll script it. And then what I'll do is I'll copy and paste that into an LLC, a large language model like ChatGPT, and I'll say, okay, copy proof this from the viewpoint of an enterprise architect and a photographer, because that's how I speak. And it'll go through and I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's so much better. Or, oh yeah, that I should have said that better. Or no, that doesn't get it. But I get enough that I can pick and choose, and then I can change my script very quickly. So it allows me to copy proof. I find it very good there. Sometimes I'm having trouble coming up with a title. And you can honestly spend hours coming up with a title sometimes. So I come up with a few ideas. I'll put them into the large language model, and then I'll say, okay, look, this is what I did. I did a review based on this. This is what it is. These are some titles I'm coming up with. I want to come up with titles to get people's attention, to get people to click, but sound like it's coming from a professional photographer that doesn't sound tabloid. Put it in there. And then sometimes I go like, yeah, no, that sounds a little tabloid-like. And it goes, okay, here's another 10. And I find that AI works there. I can tell you, as an enterprise architect, if you don't think AI is affecting your business, look at your business, because it is. It's happening in many different ways, and you need to pay attention to the trends in the industry because it will eventually hit you, and you want it to hit you when you're prepared. I've started using it not only in this business, but in my day job. And it does make a difference, especially to actually have somebody in your organization copy-proof something takes a lot of time. To have a lawyer copy-proof something takes time. They don't copy-proof, they review, but they do their legal thing. And with a good language model, what you can do is you say, okay, now review this from the point of view of a lawyer. Review this from the point of view of this. And it'll also not only give you the output, but it'll tell you what it changed. And I find that a huge time saver. To have it write a video for me? Oh, no. I would, no. Because what we're doing then is we're firing me. And I think it's my personality that I want to come forward. I enjoy this. I want to have my stamp over it. If 55,000 subscribers is the best I can do, that's fine. But if I turn it over to the AI and let it run the show, it's not going to be me, and you're going to notice the difference. Anthony, your final thoughts, words. You can go anywhere you want, and you can give us the latest deals if you like.
No, I don't know. But, I mean, I'll put my business hat on. Obviously, I want the world to buy Camera Canada from Camera Canada. I mean, that's my life. But I am, perhaps like you, I'm a businessman and also a photography enthusiast. And I just hope that people, including me, never lose the passion, because I think we got into the business of photography, whether it's through video or stills, because we love picking this thing up and using the technology in whatever device we're shooting. Could be an expensive camera, a cheap camera, and we love creating. And so I just hope that when I get older and older and older, I will never lose the passion for picking up a tool. The tool will change. You and I know that 10 years from now, this might not look like this. It might have some other feature, but we're still going to have the passion for picking this device up, this tool, and creating a vision, what we envision. Could be on a trip, could be with our kids, could be a portrait like Wes is doing portraiture, could be an innovative way of doing something. I just hope I never lose the passion. And then obviously the business side, I hope I never lose the passion for providing Canadians the products that they might need in this industry. Could be totally different 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Sony and Canon and Nikon might have so many different technology pieces. You ask Chris the question of what's going to happen in 10 years. I don't know. I can't read the tea leaves or read the crystal ball. But I hope and I know they're going to be a cool device that captures images. Whether it has AI and whether it infects people, I don't know. And the final thing I'll say is that and I know it's not the tool that makes the good photographer. So education is important, and what you do, Simon, with this channel, and other people do wonderful jobs educating, and really with education comes inspiration. So I love using YouTube to inspire me, to educate me, things I don't know, never heard about. Maybe it's a piece of software, maybe it's a piece of hardware. So I want passion, I want education, and inspiration. Those are the three things I want. Obviously, I want people to stop buying from anybody else and buy from Camera Canada, but let's be realistic. There's a lot of great retailers out there in Canada, and I just want to be one of them, and we will provide good service, we'll try, but I just want to be inspired and educated and have some passion left when I'm in my 70s. That's all I want to say.
I love the sound of that. Passion, education, and inspiration. What I try to do, and one thing I understand from a business point of view, is capabilities are potential. But at the end of the day, it's that value chain and the value. So when I architected this channel, and I did all that stuff I normally do at the business at the beginning of this. And one of the things I asked myself, well, how am I going to provide value? Like Canon rumors, Sony Alpha rumors, and I knew for years I wouldn't get sources. So how can I provide value over these sites? So what I did is I thought, okay, well, I know what I wanted when I was looking for rumors. I hated people who just pasted specs because I couldn't learn anything from that. So I'd provide the info, and then I'd say, okay, why this is important. I'd provide the analysis. It's kind of like and I likened it to the investment community because I used to work at an investment bank, Newcrest Capital. And it's the same sort of thing. Analysts have no idea what's coming in terms of earnings. They're predicting the future. They're forecasting. But they're using tools. And I thought, well, if I take that same sort of rigor of these are the specs, now let's analyze them, let's project, let's forecast, let's provide my analysis and opinion. And nobody else was doing that. I remember talking to Craig at Canon Rumors because I talked to him very early on. I didn't want him to feel I was stealing his stuff. And he said, no. I mean, you do something that none of us else, that I don't do. You don't do the analysis. You do the analysis and the opinion. And then I found out, like you find out today, we're not getting more than about 50 concurrent subscriber or viewers because what people really want to know and tune in for the live streams is the new cameras coming out. People don't seek out learning, so what you have to do is that learning, that education part, you have to bolt it on to the, hey, here's the flashy news about this new camera over here, and then you move into the video and then you start to talk about the education piece. So we start to talk about dynamic range. Yes, the Canon R5 Mark II can do 16 stops of dynamic range from a marketing point of view, but it really can only do 12 because your digital analog converter is limited to 12 stops of exposure. You can get that Canon log 2 curve lifted up. That gives you the effect of about 13.5 stops, but you're not getting 16. And I love to do that. Unfortunately, not everybody stays to that point of the video. It's a frustrating piece, Wes. They don't always watch the entire video.
Nope.
And I write the content for an entire message. I front load the information people want, but the entire thumbnail, the entire description is based on you watching the whole thing. So those are my thoughts. Anthony, I want to thank you very much for showing up on the channel. When we do a live stream, I'll send you an invite there too, because I think that's where we get most of the views and where it can really pay back to you. Wes, you saw this with the A1 too. We got up to about 400 peak viewers. The R5 II, it was 1344.
Wow.
Yeah, more than Panasonic, believe it or not, when they're live streams. So I appreciate you guys taking time out of your day. My viewers do. They don't tune in for me. They tune in for the dialogue and the conversation that we have. And just to remind everybody at home, look, these are just some of the deals I captured out there. It's not just cameras. We talked about cameras, lenses, what's in our bag. But, we're seeing all the camera stuff. We're seeing storage. And I saw some stuff on Camera Canada as well. Storage is on sale. We're seeing monitors. We're seeing televisions. We're seeing tripods. And even the bane of Canadian existence, we're seeing deals on airlines. Yes, we will all nod here in Canada. I usually try to upgrade. And it's funny how you tell them you want to upgrade, you want a larger seat because you got a bad back. And they'll put you in a seat. And as soon as they downsize you, they'll say, oh no, you didn't pay for an upgraded seat. Well, I gave you more money and you gave me a seat. How is that not me paying for an upgrade? Oh no, you didn't pay for an upgrade. Right? It's conversations like this we have with airlines. So do you have any, you do a lot of traveling, Anthony. Do you have any recommendations of lessons learned with airlines in Canada when you're traveling within country?
I am no expert, but I do travel a lot. I try to be to use the points to accumulate airplane points or whatever, and try to get the upgrades because I'm a big guy. I know I don't look it, but I'm a big guy, and I appreciate the upgrades. So I'm with you on that one, but I don't have any words of wisdom other than to try to leverage all your points, and if you can have align yourself with one airline or one group, then you can accumulate points better. Maybe with a Visa card that has airplane points, et cetera, to get to a certain status. Status is everything in airlines because then you get upgrades that are a little easier to get. So I'm a firm believer in status, and I don't mean that egotistically, but you got to have, that's what you need it, right? So I do try to get the upgrade. I do try to get a bigger seat, and using the airplane status points is my method.
Who do you think
there's no real advantage other than you put all your eggs in one basket and
Yeah.
hopefully you ask for something in return from the airlines.
Yeah, and I don't really think there's much of it. One thing I noticed with WestJet, though, is they seem to have more leather seats, and I find that with my back, I don't know what it is. When a seat is constructed with leather, it just feels like it's got better support. And I find that with Air Canada, the last few times I've flown with them, their seats are just horrible for my back.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sorry. But anyhow, look, thank you for you watching. Maybe it was Thanksgiving yesterday and you've got turkey coma. But we're transitioning into December here in just a couple of days. I want to wish you a happy and safe year. There are lots of great deals on out today. You will see some deals that are only on today. Take a look. If you're in Canada, check out Camera Canada. They've got a really good deal, good customer experience. I also believe in Downtown Camera. I've shopped with them before. Really good experience. And mention my name too. Who knows? Maybe they'll sharpen their pencil. But I do believe in shopping locally. I'm not so much a nationalist. It's just that, look, if you work and live in your town, you get that money in your town. Spending it back in your town really, really helps. I also buy from B&H too, because there's sometimes I can't source things in Canada, or I have to wait a week or two. Your local camera store, wherever you are in the world, certainly appreciates your business. Any final words, comments, Wes?
Nope, nothing left over here.
Anthony?
Nothing here. I'm all tapped out.
All right, folks. Well, on that note, then we'll conclude today's live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in. I don't expect we'll have another live stream until Q1, until we have some sort of major announcement. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks. See you later.
All right, guys.